Thanks to everyone for joining us in the chat room for this live crazy experiment we're going to try. Guys, I guess I'm just going to actually start the real show. That was the intro. That's the intro for the live viewers. That's bonus content that you only get if you watch live. So say whatever you want to say to the live people now, because after that, it's going to the millions and millions of audio listeners.
What's up?
Oh, that would have been a good one for the regular listeners, assuming it was 1997 or whatever. What year was that at? Okay, no time. Okay. I'm going to start. Yes! Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the best fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys on Eric Karlsson and their keeper pools. I am your host, Elon Dubrovsky, and with me, as always, is my very best friend in the whole wide world. You guys know him as the fantasy hockey robot and the IPP MVP, but I know him as the guy helping me develop this crazy project of a. Oh, I'm sorry. I am okay. You know him as IPP, and I know him as Brian frickin' Calm.
Hi, everybody. Careful. Get my name out of your mouth with that language that you're using. It's so nice to be here. We have like such a weird and fun episode, and it's going to be really interesting. This is like, Elon, I don't know about you, but I am so deep in the throes of almanac prep. This is like me coming up for air for 2 hours, not thinking about the almanac. And then, like, I know I'm getting right back into it after. So I'm really going to soak this non-almanac experience in.
Yeah, this is going to be an experimental show, which is perfect because just like you, Brian, by the way, it was kind of weird how I said it to me. You're known as Brian Com. I guess to everyone else, you're also known as Brian Com.
Like you, to you, I'm your best friend in the world. Yeah, that's your words, not mine.
I mean, yeah, and one day I hope to earn the ability to be called your best friend in the world, but I'll get there. Anyway, yes, we've been working hard, so we are trying something different. Basically, we were like, we don't have time to prep a show this week. John Reed, how about you do it? So yeah, we've got a great guest, and I know I just said his name, but he is from, actually, I should have had that prepped before, because you're not, what's it, TPK
Games over on Twitch. I just play D&D for fun. Right. It's fun.
Okay, sorry, I'm gonna edit. Sorry, once we get through the start, there won't be any edit points. I promise. I think I said he is from TPK Games. He's been a listener of the podcast for a long time, a patron, one of our dearest friends, John Reed, and John is going to. Oh, sorry guys. Can I just start the whole? Sorry.
Start the whole show over.
I didn't stand it out
right. Start from zero because my part wasn't even good. So
I'm gonna start the whole thing. We're gonna go through. Okay, let me just get this right. Dave, what do you want me to? Sorry, John. What do you want me to say about you? So
TPK Games.
Just John Reed from TPK Games. Yeah. And also I'm gonna say the thing about the experiment and the thing. Okay, I'm gonna get it in one take now for the rest of the whole show. Sorry, everybody. Should have thought about this. Yes! Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the best fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys on Eric Karlsson and their keeper pools. I, as always, am your host, Elon Dubrovsky, and joining me is my weekly co-host, my best friend in the whole wide world, the IPP MVP, Brian Com.
Hello, Elon. Hello, everybody. It's so nice to be here talking KKUPFL with everybody. We're going to get into that. You know, we usually have our annual talking about how to design a fantasy league episode. This is a little bit of a twist on that, and I'm so excited. Yahoo League's open in like 3 days, right? So this is the right time to be doing it. I can't wait, and I'm so excited to have our special guests here with us, too.
Yeah, we've got a crazy idea for a show right here. You've heard us sort of tease it. We were originally actually going to do this like right at the end of the season, but we didn't have enough ideas, so we pushed it and pushed it, and here it is. It's finally here, the KKUPFL rule change bracket episode. So basically, let me give some background here. We have a fantasy league, which we run through our podcast every year called the KKUPFL, the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League. We've been running it forever. We'll tell you a lot more about it as the show continues. And every year we like to tweak the rules, make some changes, keep it updated, keep it fresh. And this year we decided to ask all of the patrons and the KKUPFL participants, what rule changes do you suggest we'll make? We grabbed them all together and we told them to send it to this guy who's our first special guest of the night, John Reed. He's from TPK Games, but tonight he is our moderator. He's got all of the KKUPFL rule change ideas and he's going to be running us through a bracket where one of those ideas will make it to the big show and will be the actual new rule that will apply to our set of rules for the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patriot Fantasy League. Welcome, John Reed.
Hey, how's it going, Alon?
Great. Thank you so much for joining us.
This is funny. The way this got scheduled is originally, like you said, it was going to be earlier. And I was like, had my studio in LA. I was ready to go. And you texted me like, a month ago. And I was like, oh God, I don't know where I'm going to be, but I'm here. I'm in Tahoe. It's like really hot outside. So it's so weird to be working on a fantasy hockey podcast right now. I have fancy furniture behind me for all those watching the video. But I'm ready to go, man. I've been working on this bracket for at least an hour, and I think that it's going to be spectacular.
Yeah, I'm very excited. But you've been taking suggestions for like the past 4 or 5 months.
Been a while.
I'm really interested to see what our KKUPFL participants came up with. Of course, we still have one other person on the show because Brian, as we go through the bracket, by the way, you guys know how it works, like a March Madness bracket, right? We're going to be having matchups of different ideas, and the one that wins out goes through. But Brian, usually we agree. I respect your intelligence, but every once in a while, even though I know you're smart and you have good ideas, I might have a different idea. And in that case, we need someone to break the tie. So we've brought in the current reigning Tier 1 Ultimate KKUPFL champion. He was just on the show last week, so you all know him very well. Dave Betton.
Yes, not only that, but I also won the KKUPFL winners of all the brackets playoff challenge. I also won the auction between Elon, Brian, and myself. The team that we thought would win the Ultimate Stanley Cup. I chose the Blues, of course. Not only that, I'm also the only person to ever win the Tier 1 and to Tier 2 KKUPFL. I'm also the only person who has ever won a league with Elon and Brian. So clearly, I am not only the best fantasy hockey player in the land, but I'm also the hottest, as you can tell with my sleek KKUPFL hat.
Okay.
That hat is very nice. Just point of order. You were only in Tier 2 of the KKUPFL because you didn't earn your way up into Tier 1 as fast as others such as myself. So just be careful. I know you're not known as Mr. Humility around these parts, but you just want to watch your brags.
Hey, he doesn't have Don King, so he's got to do it for himself and be his own hype man. You did a great job, Dave. Okay, so like I said, I sort of laid out a bit of what we're going to do. We'll get into it a lot more. Of course, we do have some housekeeping to take care of. It's actually kind of a weird time for Brian and I because we have been heads down preparing our other big project, aside from the KKUPFL, our league that we run every year. Another thing we're doing for the second year in a row is our NHL Audio Almanac, where we're going to be recording an audiobook starting next Friday. I can't believe it, Brian. It's coming so soon, where we're both taking a week off of work and we're going to record this almanac, like 25 plus hours, 32 chapters, 1 chapter per team, where we're going to go through every single fantasy relevant player in the whole NHL and discuss them, just like we do on regular episodes, decide if what they did last year is sustainable or not, what we think they'll do next year. In the end, we're going to come up with projections for every player. So this is a huge project we've undertaken. And thank you so much to everyone who has pre-ordered the almanac. We'll be releasing a schedule soon for the recording schedule, so you'll be able to watch live if you happen to be available in any of our recording times. But yeah, keepingkarlsson.com/almanac if you want to get in on that. Brian, I just finished prepping my Colorado chapter today. I have 5 more to go, and I'll have all the teams prepped. I was actually very surprised. Mikko Rantanen really stunk at the end of the season. He had like a 56-point pace for the last third of the season. So I don't know, maybe that's something that we should be worried about going to next year. We'll discuss that and more, obviously, in the almanac, but that was something that surprised me. Brian, how are you doing with all of your prep?
Oh man, I am an almanac zombie right now. I'm just around the middle of the Pacific Division. I'm having a ball. Numbers coming out of my ears as we prep. Essentially, yeah, it's a show for every single team talking our fantasy projections. So I am wholly dedicated and committed to it. I wake up, I work on the almanac, I go to sleep. I wake up, I work on the almanac, I go to sleep. That's my life. And it's pretty good. So I can't wait to share the fruits of our labor with you on September 1st.
That's his life. It's now or never. By the almanac at keepingkarlsson.com/almanac. I should stop singing on this show. Okay, so one last piece of housekeeping. Of course,
copyright laws. Whoa.
Oh shoot. Okay, now I guess we're not gonna be able to release this.
It was satire.
Yeah. What was it exactly? Satire. Maybe I could get away with parody. So we are presented, I always like to mention, by DauberHockey.com. They are our great friends, and they also have released something that is very amazing. It's their annual NHL guide that you can buy from DauberHockey.com. So you've basically got a PDF file, which is a great write-up of all the teams. So basically what we're doing, the audio almanac, but in, visual form with a bunch of articles and like sleepers and all this. And then like they have their own projections. And the best thing about the Dauber guide is that it updates every anytime they feel like it, right? So you download it once and then you can keep re-downloading it as, things happen in the preseason that change people's views. So yeah, definitely you want to check it out. You want to get that guide. It's like $10, I think $12. So it's like super cheap. DauberHockey.com. Go support them because they are our co-presenters for this show. But okay, with that, let's get to KKUPFL talk. So yeah, the Keeping Karlsson Ultra Patron Fantasy League, a league open to every single patron of Keeping Karlsson. Anyone could sign up at any time to become a patron. Right now, if you've never played before, it's no big deal. You sign up, you start in the bottom tier. The way it works is it's a tiered system where you start. Last year, we had 5 different tiers, a bunch of divisions in each tier. And as you do well, you keep climbing up and up and up. And eventually you get, hopefully, to tier 1. And then if you win tier 1, you become the ultimate champion, like Dave, of course, is here on the call. So that's the general gist.
And who else? I won in 2018. I just don't know how that hasn't even been mentioned yet. I guess I'm not my own hype man. I'm too modest.
Okay, Brian, do you remember the name of the guy who won the first time?
Wasn't it me?
No, there was a guy before you. I forget.
Yeah, it was Jeff.
Brian, who won the Stanley Cup 2 years ago?
Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah, who cares? That's the main answer. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll give you a quick recap of the current KKUPFL rules. Start a timer for me. I'm going to do 1 minute or less. I'm going to tell you the current rules because then this whole episode is going to be about what we should change in the rules or add to them. So here we go. 1 minute, starting now. It's a head-to-head league, so that means every week you have a matchup against someone else. This is as opposed to like a season-long league where you're just accumulating points. So it's a head-to-head league. It's a points league, which means that every week your players are competing against your opponent's players for just total fantasy points. Currently, we're at like 5 points for a goal, 3 for an assist, half for a shot, half for a block, 0.25 for a hit. We've got a couple others. And for goalies, we actually doing an interesting thing with goalies where we don't give so many points for wins and we give a lot more points for saves and negative points for goals against. So we reward goalie performance versus just like winning games. And then what are the other main rules? I guess we have a playoffs, fantasy playoffs. That's pretty normal. Okay, and as we go through with the bracket, I guess we'll discuss more about the other ins and outs and what have yous of our league.
Yeah, there's a couple.
John,
there are 4 different divisions, so you can review maybe some of the details about each of those scoring methods or how transactions work when we get to those divisions, so that they're top of mind when we discuss what the changes to those things might be. The 4 divisions are going to be the goalie division, the skater division, the transactions division, and the commissioner rules division. And we're talking about tweaks to rules within those different categories.
Sweet. Okay, and only one of wait, there's 4 divisions, and how many rule change suggestions in each division?
So there are 8 in each division. It's a bracket of 32 rule changes.
Damn, and we have to, whatever one makes it and wins is an official rule change, but we do reserve the right, I should say, to also accept some of the other rule changes later on. Like, it's not as if like if one doesn't make it to the championship that we're like, that's never going to be a rule in the couple. If we like 2 rules, we could do it, but one of them's guaranteed to make it. But okay, you're right, Brian. Too much preamble.
Is it guaranteed? Whatever wins is guaranteed?
That's the point of this show. We are going to anoint one rule change. We're going to name the rule change after the person that suggested it. And that's a rule. I mean, not forever, but a rule for next season of the KKUPFL. Then we could always reassess, maybe take it up for the following season. But yeah, that's the plan. And with that, we've got 32 suggestions to go through for division bracket. This is going to be a bonkers show. I hope that you all like it. So everyone strap in. Let's do this. John, where do you want to start?
So let's start with the goalie division.
Okay, let's hear it. So,
okay.
Suggestions related to goalies. Got it.
Yeah. So what, just really quickly, Elon, do you know off the top of your head what the current goalies category weights are for each goalie category that we track in the KKUPFL?
Yeah, so I think are tracking 4 things. Right now, we're going 2 points for a win, 0.35 for a save, -2 points for a goal against, and then 1 point for a shutout. So you get like a bonus point if you got the shutout. And that's how it is. By the way, I should mention, if you go to keepingkarlsson.com/league, that will give you access to our rules sheet where you can see the whole breakdown. So if you're following along, you can pause the podcast, keepingkarlsson.com/league to see all the rules. Okay, yes.
Okay, so let's start with the 4-5 matchup. I just also want to add that I got all of these suggestions from the listeners and even some of the hosts, and applied a sort of John style seeding to this whole thing. I just kind of went based on as a player, maybe what I would like to see more or less. So the seeding is not maybe it's kind of like how the NHL does its first round of matchups, right? Rivals, whatever.
So you're saying it's rigged. You're rigging it.
It's rigged. Yeah, I've rigged this thing in advance. I don't get a vote, so I had to do something, right?
Okay, that's fair.
Anyway, let's start with the 4-5. This is one that I rigged because they were kind of comparable. Number 4 in the goalie division is that wins should be worth more points. And number 5, the 5 seed in the goalie division, is saves should be worth more points. They didn't specify how many more points like some of the other suggestions did. So I guess it's up to you guys how much you'd want to increase those. But the 4 seed is wins worth more, and the 5 seed is saves worth more. Which one would you like to put through to the next round?
Brian, do you want to go first, or do you want me to take this? Obviously, okay, I'll go first. You pointed at me. Brian gave me the cool guy point there. I wish I could be this slick. To me, I think I kind of like what we did last year. Most leagues really value these goalies who are just on great teams, right? So if you have Connor Hellebuck, even though he only had a .913 save percentage, he was still super valuable in leagues last year just because he played a decent amount and Winnipeg was a good team. But I kind of think that I want to give more points to a goalie that's actually good and not just benefiting from his team being great. Like, obviously, wins are something, and also the team matters for how well you play also, because, you might get more or less protection. Look at like Robin Leonard last year versus, Corey Crawford or someone on Chicago. So to me, I kind of like the idea that we're not giving too many points for wins. So I think my vote is going to be for saves being more points to get the extra weight as opposed to wins.
It's hard because neither one is a category that a goalie has much control over, right? So, and it's funny because like a win rewards you for having a goalie, like giving wins more points rewards you for having a goalie on a good team. Saves being worth more rewards you for having a goalie on a defensively porous team or a workhorse goalie. But wins also rewards you for a workhorse goalie too. So I'm actually leaning towards making wins worth more points because you want those goalies who, like, you want to add value, right? So it makes more sense. And when you're at the draft table, to want to draft a goalie from the better team, right? That goalie should be worth more than a goalie on the 30th place team. So that's where I'm sort of sitting between wins being worth more and saves being worth more. If I want to increase the value of one, wins are scarcer, wins are harder to get, and wins a goalie can have a hand in earning. Like, both of them are definitely team dominated stats. But if a goalie wants to stand on their head and steal a couple extra games, maybe you should get points for those.
All right, so it looks like we might be having our first tiebreaker, and Dave's going to have to break it. If I can make one more counterpoint before we send it to Dave, I'm not trying to change your mind, Brian, but I think the thing with making saves worth more, I think that the seed of that suggestion is probably because there were times last season when a goalie had a bad game. Since we have -2 for a goal against, then these goalies were like contributing negative to their teams. And that was probably very frustrating for people who are like, competing and trying to get, playing their goalie because they think they'll help them, and ends up hurting them. So I think maybe they're hoping if saves are worth a little more, then at least if your goalie has a bad game, maybe you get 0 as opposed to like -3. So I think that's a good reason to keep it there. But I'm okay to let Dave be the decider unless you want to make a final comment on my comment, Brian.
No, I hear that. Like the structure of but you could make the same argument for wins, right? If somebody gives up a few goals and still wins the game, extra points for a win can help offset that. But I do hear you. It is frustrating when a goalie, like in our setup, a goalie is rarely like sort of middling or average. They either do nothing for you, do great things for you, or do bad things to you. Yeah. And so adding a little more weight to each save could help balance that out. But I think that's part of it. Like, I think in our format, so long as a goalie has like a .905 save percentage on a given night, they're not going to go into negative points. So if you want to go ahead and take a risk on a goalie who's not known for putting a lot of quality starts together, that's on you, right? Like, I would say the argument for making saves worth more is just to balance out the playing field a lot. So the goalies at the top aren't worth so much more than the goalies at the bottom, but I'm sticking to giving more credit for wins.
I guess obviously we'll have to move this along, and really both of these are kind of boring.
So what I have to say isn't important.
No, that's because this is great content. Because obviously this show is all about just like giving people ideas of how to design their leagues. Shrouded around this idea of us coming up with a rule change. I don't think it really matters to me what wins this because neither of these are going to win the bracket because they're both very boring. But Dave, what's moving on to the next round?
I mean, you both make great points, and I could kind of like delve into the little intricacies into each. But ultimately, like for me, what I had the biggest problem with last year was that the wins weren't worth enough. And so ultimately, I am going to, because someone could have like a somewhat decent game, and then you're like, oh, yeah, they win, and then you only get a point. And so I would like the wins to be worth a little bit more than what the saves were. So I'm going with the wins here.
All right. So wins moves forward.
It looks like I rigged it correctly because the 4 seed beats the 5 seed.
Good job.
To move on.
By the way, just to correct Dave quickly, it was 2 points for a win. And now if this were to win, we'll have to increase that. But
it didn't feel like it. It didn't feel like it.
It didn't feel like it. It's true.
Okay. Well, so John, what's next?
Okay. So the number 4 seed just went through, and it's going to play the winner of the 1 versus 8 matchup. The 1 versus 8 matchup is the first seed is there are no negative goalie points at all. So you can't go negative. It caps it at 0 versus the 8 seed, which is we just get rid of goalies altogether. No more goalies. Goalies are voodoo. We can't deal with it anymore.
Okay, I'll go first since you went first last time.
Okay.
I think these are both bad options. I think you should, like, if you look at any fantasy format going all the way back to the original days, you always got hammered for a bad goalie performance. If you want to take like a volatile goalie, that's on you to some extent. Now, I get it. Goalies are just volatile week to week, and 1 or 2 bad starts are bound to happen and can hit you hard anytime. But the better goalies won't do that as often. And like you can make the choice for no goalies at all as the opposite option here. So like I'm like, okay, fine. If you want no goalies, we don't need to force everyone to have no goalies. If people want to have like a high risk, high reward pick, go ahead, get a goalie, make it your choice. But I want that risk is inherent to a goaltending position. So I'm voting to keep it.
Yeah, okay. It's interesting.
Oh, wait. So I've just actually said I don't like either.
Yep, you have to pick one, Brian.
Oh, crumbs. Okay, I'll go no negative goalie points, but like I'm just picking one to lose in the next round. So
okay, and we already know that it's going to go against
wins is worth more.
So it sounds like we already know where Brian's going to go for after that. So yeah, I agree that it probably doesn't matter what we choose here. I like the idea potentially of no negatives, except I don't even think that's technically possible. That's probably a criteria we should have told people. Like, unless we choose to change the fantasy platform to something that supports the rule change suggestion, I don't know how to make Yahoo cap it at 0 and not go negative. So I feel like just for that reason, let me go with no goalies. But I agree with Brian. I think that was one of the beautiful things, if I may promote the KKUPFL, because also not only is this episode, a big, wrapper around discussing rule change suggestions and just general league design, it's also a wrapper around us promoting playing in the KKUPFL, because I think everyone should play. It's a lot of fun. It's better the more players we have. And I would say one of the beauties of playing the KKUPFL last year is some players made it far, by riding their goalies. Like I actually had Darcy Kemper and Matt Murray in my fantasy playoffs, and they were amazing for me, and they definitely helped me win my championship. Dave, I think you didn't even have any goalies, right? Or at some points you didn't, and you still won the championship. So there were multiple paths to victory, which I kind of liked. So I think like what Brian said, taking away the goalies altogether kind of takes away some of that fun. But all that said, I'm definitely not going to vote for the one that I think is impossible. So, but Brian, what was your suggestion again?
About what?
Like, which one did you pick?
Oh, I just no negative. I picked the number 1 seed, which is
Fine.
No negative goalie points. Like that I'm more amenable to.
Okay, so I'll agree with that, even though it's impossible, just so that we can move it forward.
Well, it's not impossible. We would just have to take away the value for goals against.
Oh, like we'd have to rejig.
Negative.
I see what you mean. Just like rejig the whole thing. All right, fine. So that could go forward, but then we get to the next round where it's going to, could we just do the next round right now, John?
Yeah, let's do it. So the number 1 seed, no negative goalie points, is taking on the 4 seed, which is just wins are worth a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm voting wins.
So this is either wins are worth more or goals against are worth nothing.
Correct.
Yeah, which means we would just give some point. I guess if we did that, we'd have to basically give points to wins and saves and not penalize when a goalie does badly at all. which I hate. And
Or
we
you
have
could
to,
say the penalty for a goal against would be the lack of points for the save.
right. But basically, then you're just saying goalies who play more are going to be the best goalies to own. Like, even if a goalie has a bad game, they're still giving you something than a goalie that doesn't play at all. I just don't like that at all. So I'm saying win worth more for sure is my vote.
Okay. And I'm actually like warming up a little to having no penalty for goals against, but I'm going to just go back to what I said before, which is that there should be inherent risk in playing a goaltender every night. It sucks. It's awful. It's harrowing. It's stressful, but it's part of fantasy hockey. So yeah, wins worth more points for me also.
So wins worth more just made it to the top 8. Is that correct, John?
Yes, that is correct.
The final
Wins
8.
worth more is going to the final 8. So
The Elite 8.
Oh yeah,
the
obviously.
Elite 8. I'm so bad with these bracket things.
Dave, are you? I'm just curious. Dave, are you okay with that? What do you think? You have no say, but are you okay with wins being worth more going to the Elite 8 there?
I'm totally okay. That was one of the main things that I had against the couple last year, actually.
All right, so there we go. We've got our first entered into the Elite 8, and I guess now where are we going next, John?
So we're going to go to the bottom half of the goalie division, or the bottom half, because that was the 1 seed in that section. So we're going to start with the 3 versus 6 matchup, which is team goaltending, kind of like in fantasy football where you can take the team defense. You just take like St. Louis's goalie is your goalie, whoever the goalie is, versus the 6 seed, which is adding an active goalie slot. So it's 3 active goalie slots total. So Alon, where do you want to start with this one?
Team goalies to me sounds like playing with training wheels, like riding a bike with training wheels, or like playing checkers versus chess, or whatever analogy that you want to use. Like part of the fun for me anyways is I want to maybe draft Thomas Greiss, because I don't think Varlamov is going to be able to hold on to the job. Like, that's even like a lot of our podcast is about, Binnington freaking coming out of there. Imagine if someone picked St. Louis because they don't know anything. They're just like, oh, Jake Allen's good, right? And then they end up getting rewarded with getting this like great performance by Binnington down the stretch. They didn't even know anything about it. So to me, it just seems like a little bit too basic for me. So, and what's the other suggestion?
3 active goalie slots total.
Yeah. I mean, I guess for that means that you have more options to get more points from goalies. I'd have to think that through a little more. I guess we'll discuss it when we get to future rounds, but I definitely like that better than the team. Also, I don't even think it's possible to do team goalies in Yahoo. So for that reason, also give me the 3 spots.
Have some whimsy, Elon. Don't let Yahoo decide what should and shouldn't be an interesting fantasy feature. Let's just, for the sake of argument, assume Yahoo can do it all, and then we can knock it out at the end if it's no good. But if it's a better idea, I don't know. So 3 active goalie slots in the KKUPFL right now. People sometimes don't. By the way, if you're following along and Elon, maybe you mentioned this and I don't know, and you just want the KKUPFL rule set in front of you. You missed something we said earlier. Karlsson.com/league is where you can find it. Anyway, so 3 active goalie slots, considering some people use 0 of them, I'm not sure it's a great idea. I like it potentially if you're not taking away a skater slot to make that extra goalie slot. You're just saying like, hey, you want to try and throw another goalie into your lineup, by all means. Team goaltending is something I've kind of been interested in for a long time. And it's because there are some teams that report their starters the day of, like the morning of the game, or even the day before. And there's some teams that don't announce them until like the team takes the ice. And then there's also always a chance a goalie gets pulled or whatever. And I just feel like sometimes that's not totally fair. So you can do your fantasy research. And honestly, Elon, maybe one thing we should have in our almanac and should be in guides is like a schedule of when each team typically announces their starting goalie. Because I would much rather have a goalie who, might be in a tandem situation on a team that announces their goalie on a Monday. Like that would be on the morning. Like that would be a tiebreaker for me. If I have 2 equal goalies, it would be, well, what's the coach's policy in sharing their starter with the media?
Yeah.
So that's why, so having team goaltending would help control for that. And also it protects you in case you're the person who has, let's just say, Ben Bishop, and Ben Bishop gets injured and you're, I don't know, in a float, like a sensory deprivation chamber, and you don't know about it. And so somebody runs out and grabs Anton Hudobin, and by the time you're out and you're so stressed out, you need to go back into the float. So I that's my argument for team goaltending.
So you're gonna vote for team goaltending?
I am.
Why don't we even just do team defense? You don't even have to worry about who's going to be quarterbacking the top power play. Just
don't get ahead. Don't get ahead of the game, Elon. Don't get ahead. There might be a suggestion in here.
All right, let's just do. How about just pick a team, and whoever wins the cup, you win your fantasy league. How about that, Brian? Take out all the fun.
Okay.
All right, so that's going
called,
through.
That's called betting.
Okay, if that wins the bracket, then I'm out of the couple. But okay, so
Come on,
Dave,
it's not, you don't. Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. Okay, I'm trying to be dramatic for the show. I don't like it. But let's see what Dave decides.
Hold on. Before we get to Dave, I want to maybe he could address one of my questions in here. First of all, this was first suggested on your podcast during the Daniel Negreanu podcast. It was one of the suggestions he thought might be interesting for fantasy hockey.
Oh, and that
well, yeah, if Daniel Negreanu said it, then Elon loves it. That
exactly.
is like automatic win through the bracket. Let's just end the show now.
But Dave, I was wondering if you could also talk about how the 3 active goalie slots would affect just man hours on a fantasy hockey, specifically in this league.
I mean, it would be huge. I mean, it would completely affect not only where they're being drafted and not in the tier 1, essentially the auction draft. I would imagine they would go a little bit more. It's hard to say. I'm not entirely sure. So just to be cleared, so I know for sure, it's team goalie versus 3 goalie spots, right?
Yeah. Can I chime in super quick about the 3 goalie spots thing? I think the big thing that changes is, let's say if you're in your draft right now in the KKUPFL, every team only has 2 active goalie spots. So probably people are going to only be thinking about drafting like 2, maybe 3 goalies on their team. All of a sudden, if you have 3 active goalie spots, people are going to have so many more spots to fill. So if you don't grab a goalie early, other teams might just grab like all the goalies, and you might be left with literally like people that aren't even in the league, because that means that there's technically everyone had 3 spots times 14 teams. You're like talking about like almost every single goalie in the league being owned at this point.
I'm also going to argue against myself for a moment here and say, because what you said, Elon, just reminded me why I have also, by the way, I've advocated for both of these things at different points in time. Having 3 active goalie slots does also protect you in case you're waiting for a goalie to be announced, right? If you have 3 goalies on your roster and you're not sure which of them is going to sit or start, you don't need to make that call, right? If you want to start whoever starts, you get it and you don't have to worry. And it also might encourage or make it a little easier for people to own tandems, right? It's sort of like the opposite of team goaltending. So if I'm like, you know what? I don't care who starts for Edmonton. I want their goalie because I'm a nut. I'll get Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen, and instead of burning a hole in my roster, like they still sort of will, but at least I know I'll get the Edmonton star, which is actually pretty similar to my argument for team goaltending.
So are you changing your vote, or is Dave deciding?
No, I'm sticking with team goaltending.
All right, Dave, let's hear it.
Both of you make valid arguments, but if I don't like either of them, but if I had to choose, I would go 3 goaltenders.
Smart. Okay, good. Phew. All right. What's 3 goaltending spots going against?
So it's going against the winner of the 2 versus 7 seed fight. This one's interesting. So let's start with the 2 seed. It is 1 to 2 more points per shutout. So basically it's shutouts worth more points, but it specifies like a cap of 2 extra points for the shutout. Versus 7. 7 is the one that most people submitted in different ways. So there are a lot of people who are unhappy with the goaltending balance, and they just submitted rebalance the goaltending. One person submitted a very specific rebalancing. Saves are worth 0.1, wins are worth 3, shutouts worth 5. So that is 7, is that specific balance of goaltending stats. So it's 1 to 2 more points per shutout versus the specific rebalancing of saves 0.1, wins 3, shutouts 5.
Okay. Should I go first? I'll go first.
Okay. I think it was my turn to go first, but you go ahead.
Go ahead, Brian.
No, please.
I just want to keep the show moving. I didn't mean to step ahead of you, but this is probably very boring content.
Bad content to be talking about who should go first.
Tweet at us at Keeping Karlsson.
Oh my God. Go.
Okay. First of all, the other idea, this specific rebalancing, I noticed there's no negative points for goals against, which is something we already kind of voted against and something we don't like. So
it passed one round. It got through one round.
So I think more points for shutout. I think that was actually our biggest flaw in our goalies. It's like not a big deal because shutouts don't happen all too often, but we gave an extra point for a shutout. Like that really took away a lot of the fun, right? Because if your goalie has a shutout and you're waiting, you're watching, like, ooh, is he going to hold on to the shutout? That's like a fun part about watching hockey, and it's a fun part of fantasy, right? My goalie's bringing a shutout into the third period, and you're like, don't jinx it, blah blah, all that fun stuff. And we kind of took it away because we said one extra point for a shutout. We just paid like a little crumb. It's nothing. So I'd be definitely okay with giving more. I even feel like if it doesn't win the bracket because it's maybe too boring, I still kind of feel like I want to make that change anyways. But let's see how things shake out. Yeah, definitely for me, I'd go with the extra points for the shutout because I don't like the other suggestion, and I really like this suggestion.
Yeah, right now we have like a third of a point for a save, and this suggestion has a tenth of a point for a save, and I think that's too much a devaluation, especially when you're adding value to wins. That's going to create a much larger gulf and gap between the haves and the have-nots in terms of goalies, and I think too big of one. So I am going to say, even though like in categories leagues, I don't love shutouts as a category because they're fairly random, right? Like there's some goalies who have a better chance night in, night out to give you a shutout, but when and where they come, whether they come, Brian Boucher style 4 or 5 in a row, or whether they come, once every 2 weeks on a regular basis, it doesn't really reflect the truth. Like it's a coin flip whether or not you're going to get a shutout when you need it. So I don't love shutouts as a category, but like in a points league, I'm happy to dole out another extra little bit for it. Like it is a fun thing and it makes it really exciting. And to know it raises the ceiling of what a goalie can accomplish on a given night, right? How much a goalie can contribute to your team. So for that, I support the adding 1 to 2 more points for a shutout.
So the 2 seed is expectedly moves through to the next round, and it is taking on the 6th seed of 3 active goalie slots. So Brian, you can go first here. Which do you prefer? More points for a shutout or more goalies active on your roster?
I know Elon's really nervous about where I'm going to go with his rules because we have made it high stakes. We have to choose one of these. And I happen to know, like, I just have a sense of what a couple of his favorites are. And it's making me, just for kicks, want to try and knock them out early. But I think I'm not going to play that card just yet. So I am going to choose. I think if I'm able to predict, I think Elon likes the 1 or 2 more points for a goalie shutout as a good tweak that adds a little bit here, but doesn't rock the boat too much. And I think that's more worthwhile than having the 3 active goalie slots. I like having the 3 active goalie slots because I'm someone who likes to go for tandems, and it just helps balance that out a little bit. But I will stick with the. I'm gonna go with the 1 to 2 more points for a shutout. Moving on for me, Elon.
Okay, so like first of all, I want you to just choose what you like best. I don't want you to do like game it like or worry about my feelings. I'll be fine. Another thing I just realized for the 3 active goalie spots, which I don't know if we've discussed yet, a big part of the KKUPFL, and you could say this is a good thing or a bad thing, is spot starting goalies, right? Like sometimes a backup gets a start and people might use one of their 4 acquisitions per week. Oh, which is by the way another rule that maybe we'll be discussing later. But you might want to use one of your 4 acquisitions per week to like spot start a goalie. If you see, ooh, like I see Pavel Francouz is going to be getting the start for Colorado. Let me pick him up. And if everyone has 3 goalies on their team, as like 3 active goalies, then there's basically going to be no backups available in free agency. So we've basically taken away spot starting, which I think is no fun. Like, unless you might be like, there are people out there who are like, I don't like cycling. We had a patron once who was like, all you Yahoo kids and you're cycling and you're like making ad drops all the time. Back in my day, you picked your lineup and you stuck with it like a real grown up. And so like, fine. But I kind of like spot starting goalies. So that's another reason why I don't really like it. I just needed time to like process that rule suggestion and really think of why I didn't like it, even though I knew I didn't like it. So yeah, definitely I'm going with the shutouts because I think it's just going to be more fun. I'm willing to even put 2 more points for a shutout, make it like 2 points for a win. And then if you get a shutout win, that's 4 points right there. Why the heck not 2.5 even, but we'll discuss the nitty gritty at the end if that makes it through. But yeah, I definitely like that. So
Dave, how are you feeling about, the 1 to 2 more points for a shutout, making it through to take on wins worth more for the goalie division champion?
Well, I'm definitely a little bit interested in regarding of making goalies a little bit more worthwhile, because at least I know this wasn't the case in all tiers last year, but at least in tier 1 last year, goalies weren't worth a whole heck of a lot. And if we made 3 active goalies, they would definitely be worth a little bit more. But so I'm assuming that we would keep the rosters the same and everything like that. And it would just be like, hey, if you want to add an extra goalie, add an extra goalie.
Well, it won't be if you want to. You'll have 3 spots. Oh, but I
Right.
guess that is true. That is something to consider, at least on Yahoo. If we have an extra spot on your roster, you could always leave it blank and have an extra player on your bench. I don't think we'd be able to even control for that. So basically, we'd just be giving people an extra bench spot to use for any position, just not on the same night. Like, like if you already have 4 defensemen playing that night, you obviously couldn't play a 5th one as opposed to playing a 3rd goalie. But that's a good point. Like, that's something we didn't consider. But anyways, it already lost. So now we're just talking for fun here.
Well, but I'm curious to know if I had gone for the 3 active goalies, would Dave have put it through or not?
Probably not. I'd probably still go the shutouts.
Interesting. So that's going to be fun. We'll get to that later. Basically, we're going to be debating.
But it was close. It was close.
That's cool. Thanks. Do you have, by the way, John, in front of you, who made these suggestions, or is that?
Yeah, so yes, sort of. Yes, I do. I'll once we get the champion. So I think let's do it. Let's do the 2-4 matchup, and then once we have the champion, I'll let you know whose suggestion it was, and we'll move on to the next division, and then we'll come back for the champions versus each other, right?
I'd be okay, actually, to be honest, John. Up to you. You're the moderator here. I'd be okay with leaving the goalies championship for the end of the show and kind of going to another division. Maybe we could get to the final 4. We'll get to the final 8.
Okay. So just so you guys know, I'll take the suspense away for this one. Wins worth more.
Oh no, sorry, John. I only wanted to ask about the ones that got eliminated. I don't want to be biased in liking a person more and wanting to vote for theirs. Like, I was just curious about specifically the 3 goalie spots. Whose idea was that? Because that
was Brian's suggestion.
Oh,
big reveal.
That's interesting. Okay, yeah. So let's, if it's okay with you guys, I think it might be fun to leave goalies, and then we'll get to our big like wins versus worth more versus shutouts versus worth more. I think that'll be a fun discussion.
Sounds good. So let's stay kind of in the categories-ish section, and we'll go to the skater division. So let's leave the goalies aside and let's go to your skaters. So like we did before, we'll start with the 4-5 matchup. The 4 seed is take a bench slot away, and the 5 seed is add 1 utility spot to the roster. So again, the 4 seed is -1 bench slot, and the 5 seed is add 1 utility slot.
Okay, so I'm just working through this, Elon. Maybe you can help if I'm not. So we either take away a bench slot, so rosters are shorter, or we add a util slot, so rosters are the same size, but you can start 1 extra guy a night.
No, I'm assuming when they're saying add a util spot, they're not saying replace a bench spot with a util spot.
I think that's what it's saying.
I think so too.
So what's that suggestion? Add a util spot. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's add a utility spot. So that's an extra player. Yeah, it's not taking away a bench slot.
Yeah,
because that's the number 3 seed. Spoiler alert is subtract the bench slot and add the utility slot.
Okay, so we got a few different angles here. So we're deciding whether to smallen the rosters. This is where I'm at with all my almanac prep.
Or biggin. We're gonna embiggen or smallen the roster.
We're gonna embiggen the active roster, or we're gonna smallen the non-active roster. Yeah. So you carry fewer players. So carrying fewer players per team would mean that the free agent pool is a little more well stocked, right? And then I'm trying to just see both sides of it here. And Elon, you can go first on the next one. And then for the if we add an active roster spot, it takes away, I really hate sit-start decisions. I'm going to be honest. Like, it's one of the, like, it's built into the game. It's part of fantasy, but it's so hard because it really can be a coin flip on a given night. Like, there's not skill in a lot of sit-start decisions, especially when you're at the bottom of your lineup. It's like a cupful. It's competitive. You know what you're doing, and you have 2 essentially equal options. So for that reason, that it saves me a sit-start decision, I am going to vote for +1 utility slot. So one more active player in your lineup.
It's interesting, Brian. Like, I think there's a real philosophical debate here about what you like about playing fantasy, right? Like, it's there's fun things and then there's skill things. And sometimes I guess they're at odds together because I think it's a lot of fun to have an extra decision to make of like, should I play this player or this player? Then as you're watching the games, you get to sort of have that rush of like, yes, I made the right decision, or, oh no, I made the wrong decision. Like, it's part of, like, it's a game, right? We're playing this game not to just like see who's the smartest, but also just to enjoy playing the game. But like, on the other hand, I get what you're saying, Brian, that you want to have less, you want the winner, to you, it's like the winner should be the person who's the best.
Yeah, to make a card game analogy, you're saying, do we want fantasy hockey to be like War or like...
Let's not say War, but let's say like Settlers of Catan versus Kalis. And Kalis is like a really advanced board game, and Settlers still has strategy, but it's not like as advanced as Kalis.
Well, Settlers has strategy and dice, so there's like a random mechanic, and Kalis does a lot to minimize randomness.
There's no randomness, basically, except for like what your opponent does to kind of affect you. But anyway,
and I enjoy playing Kalis.
Okay, so to me, it's basically like we're saying. To me, I'm just going to think about it not in terms of the start-sit decision, but also just the fact: do we want to have a wider pool of free agents, like a deeper pool or a shallower pool? Because that's basically what it's going to come down to. Like, if we take away a roster spot, that means less players are owned and there's more exciting free agents available. And if we add a spot, then that's even more people owned per team.
I'm going to step in. I don't think it's deeper or shallower.
Yes, it is.
No, I think it's.
Right, we're either going to be taking away a roster spot or we're going to be adding an extra roster spot.
No, we're not.
Yeah, yes. John just said that.
Yes. So Brian, because number 3 is taking away a bench and adding utility, this one is adding a bench and adding utility versus subtracting a bench.
Oh, okay.
We're basically, that's all we're talking about here. Forget about number 3.
Right.
Number 3 is not happening now. We're just talking about adding a spot or removing a spot. I think actually I might be more down to remove the spot and make it a shallower league so there's more exciting free agents, even for maybe a bit of a selfish reason that then maybe the players that we're talking about it, because let's be real here, like the leagues that I'm playing in, when I'm looking at free agents, that's also helping me decide who I want to talk about on Keeping Karlsson, to ask you who are the interesting free agents. So I think maybe we have heard some complaints sometimes that we talk about players that are really like in the dregs for a lot of people's leagues who are like an 8-team leagues and couples of 14-team league. So it's already super deep. Why not make it like a little less deep and take away one bench spot? So I'm going to vote for that. And what did you vote for, Brian? Adding a spot or taking away a spot?
I voted for +1 util slot. And I just want to know, I want everyone to know, Elon is so receptive to critique and so ready to improve himself. I sent him a link to a Reddit thread the other day about someone want to know, like, I want to know who to support. It was our fantasy hockey thread. And somebody wanted to know who to support on Patreon. And there were some comments, like which fantasy hockey podcast to support. And there were some comments in it. And one of them was that Elon always puts Brian down. And I don't like that. And so Elon has already gone out of his way to make sure to build me up and to make sure nothing can be interpreted as him putting me down, which, by the way, I didn't even think was true in the first place. And now we've just heard a response to the other critique, which was that we talk about too many, like the players we talk about are too deep for some people. Like, we don't need to talk for 90 minutes about guys who aren't even fringe guys in a lot of people's leagues. So we just heard the other one. And Elon, everything you're doing is perfect.
Brian, you don't know me, okay? Like, I've had this thought for a while. I've literally said before on the show that I want to participate in a shallower league just so I could get more exposed to the types of players that are free agents in shallower leagues. So this is not only because of that one link you sent me, but okay. I'm saying to take away a spot. You're saying to add a spot. Dave, what's what's moving forward?
Take away a spot, 100%, because the other way around is someone might just get lucky and they go off the wazoo. I'd much rather it be the other way around and someone has to make the tough decision and they make the wrong decision.
Yeah, I think this is like the difference between is Roope Hintz getting drafted or not, right? And so maybe you have to kind of decide, do you want it to be a league where you're going to obviously draft Roope Hintz with a late pick because he might be on the top line? Or is it like, there's other guys who are more established that might be on a power play available. So, all right, we'll see how it does against, I don't know if we already know one of its competitors, but let's go to the next one.
No, we don't actually. So in the one, I should have seeded it differently, but yes. No, I also wanted to add that the least amount of submissions came in for rebalancing, skater, categories. It's mostly about roster. So you like spot on, guys, on the way that you have the skaters balanced right now. I think that that's one of the strengths of what you guys have put together here. Sorry, just wanted to add that editorial piece. But the 4-5 is done. No upset there. The 4 seed won with take away a bench slot, and it's going to be facing the winner of the 1 versus 8 seed battle. The 1 seed is add face-off wins as a statistical category, so track it with however many points you would like, versus the 8 seed, which is blocks should be worth more than shots on goal.
Wait, so what was the first seed again?
So the first one is just add face-off wins, track it somehow with some amount of points, versus 8, which is blocks need to be worth more than shots.
I know exactly.
This is not slotted evenly. This should not be 1 versus 8.
Aren't these like 7 and 8? Is this 7 versus 8?
No, this is 1 versus 8.
No, but like, should it be 7 versus 8?
I just want to point out the reason it isn't is because all of the other matchups are almost like directly in competition to one another. So this was just like the other 2, and I needed them to go against each other in the first round.
It's good. I know Brian hates these both. So Brian, why don't you go first?
Oh, okay. It was your turn, but that's nice.
Okay,
I do
I'll
hate
go
them.
first.
Okay.
All right. So I'll even speak as you. Brian hates blocks in general because he thinks that actually blocks reward players who aren't necessarily valuable to their team. Like I've heard Brian say on the show before, like a player that's blocking a shot, that means a guy who didn't have the puck. You know, he had to like put himself in a position to block a shot because he wasn't able to drive offense. And so that someone like Chris Russell, who's great for blocks, isn't actually a great player. So do we really want to reward, like, you know, and Brian thinks of building your fantasy roster as trying to build like a roster of good players who are valuable to an NHL team. And so that's, I think, why you said in the past that you don't even really like blocks as a category. But the counterpoint of why we do use them is because you want to give some more weight to defensemen, since otherwise like they're going to become a lot less valuable than the forwards since they get less points, and blocks is better than like plus minus or whatever else. And so that's why we use blocks. But I feel like you're definitely going to say that you think shots should be worth more than blocks. Maybe there's a question of like the average number of shots a player takes versus an average number of blocks like a defenseman has. But I think it's actually like kind of even, except for like, I guess like someone like McKinnon had like 300 plus shots last year. I don't think anyone ever blocks 300 plus shots. But anyway, and then what's the other one? Sorry, face-offs. Okay, yeah, John, you're muted. Okay. Okay, so face-off wins, basically we're just making centers more valuable. So now we're just rebalancing how you want to build your team. Right now, actually, centers are kind of the players who you don't really want to draft so high because there's so many of them. There's so many more valuable centers than wingers out there. So it's kind of smart strategy to maybe, you know, after obviously the elite guys like the Crosbys and the McDavids and whatever, but after them, you just kind of want to not draft centers. Even like someone like Paul Stastny, who was really solid last year, is going to probably go in a late round, as we've seen in our slow drafts, just because, you know, everyone's trying to fill their winger spots, which are a lot rarer. So this way it gives you more of an incentive to draft a center. So I like that. So I'm going to vote for face-off wins being worth something.
Okay, so what you said about me and blocks, I think you were more describing me in hits, because I like the balancing effect of blocks in terms of making defensemen worth owning and not just running with one defenseman for a season, and, you know, a bunch of like putting other guys on your bench just because you want to hoard good enough skaters or get more games out of your forwards. Like I'm for blocks for that reason. So, being worth more than shots, debatable. I think I have a problem with that because I would much prefer a volume shooter to a volume blocker. As for face-off wins, face-off wins of all the like marginally acceptable fantasy hockey stats, face-off wins are the most boring to me. So like I'm not counting plus minus because that's not acceptable. I'm not counting PIMS. That's also not acceptable. So of everything in the realm of acceptability, face-offs is just so deathly boring. It's like there's not a lot of variance. I guess you're talking face-off wins. So face-off wins for most players are a coin flip. Like most centermen are between 47 and 53%. There are a couple really valuable guys who win 55% of their draws. I think Jonathan Taves is one of them. But like what adding face-off wins would do would be like what adding hits does. We're not picking somebody who necessarily, I mean, a face-off win does positively help your team, although not by a ton, but it does help your team, especially depending on the situation. It helps your team more than a hit. And it also does add a little more value to centermen. So I'm thinking of the free agent pool in the KKUPFL last year. And if I wanted to find a defenseman, it was impossible. Like the wire was picked clean. So I wouldn't want to make defensemen any more valuable, or else we'd all be rostering guys like Eric Cernak all season long. And then if I think of how many centermen were available, there were ample centermen available. Like Elon said, like they're the ones that usually put off drafting because the value of a replacement can be so low and there's so many. So if I wanted to try and rebalance the value, and using face-off wins is the way to do that, towards centermen, sure, I could get on that as opposed to overvaluing defensemen. So my long-winded way of saying I agree with Elon. Adding face-off wins is my choice.
I mean, I'm definitely not letting this go past the next round if I have anything to say about it. But
Me too.
Okay, so it is interesting.
I was going to say we can do that pretty quickly. Then we've got the 4 seed subtract a bench slot versus the 1 seed add face-off wins. You guys are both saying put the 4 seed through.
Sorry, so what's the 4 seed again? Removing a bench spot?
Yep.
I just wanted to say something quickly. I just didn't get a chance to bring it up in time. If anyone's curious, like what players would benefit the most from having face-off wins be counted, because we don't really talk about it much on the show. Looks like Alex Barkov led the league in face-off wins last year with 1,041. Sidney Crosby was next with 1,012. Then there's a huge drop after them down to like 800. So there's no one in the 900s even. Then you've got Philip Dano, Dylan Larkin, Travis Zajac. So all of a sudden he becomes relevant maybe. Tavares, Zibanejad, Bergeron, Couturier, Backstrom. That's the top 10. So basically it would make Alex Barkov maybe a first-round pick when otherwise maybe he's more of a second-round pick. So that would be interesting. But
I think what it would do is it would make number 1 centers more closely aligned in value to left wing and right wing, right?
I definitely agree. Like the thing with face-offs is it's like on one hand, I do like the idea of maybe rebalancing the center value, but on the other hand, it's just like kind of dumb to have a category that not every player is eligible to contribute to. Like even like blocks, like a forward can get blocks. Like Ryan Getzlaf is actually kind of valuable even if he's not doing so well in points, because he somehow gets lots of blocks, which is nice. So it's kind of like just face-off wins just because a player, just Mikko Rantanen, doesn't take face-offs. Maybe that's a bad example. I don't know if he does, but you know what I mean? Like, anyways, okay, so that's gone. Now we're doing face-offs being worth more versus taking away a roster spot. I don't know, Brian, it's starting to grow on me taking away a roster spot. I kind of do want to play in a shallower league. Obviously, we'll see how far it can get, but I'm going to vote for taking away the roster spot.
I'm going to join you. Sorry, Dave. I know you're just chomping at the bit. So, like, I want you to weigh in also to see if we've made any mistakes in your opinion or anything you would have argued against. But I'm also, like, you know, I don't love taking away a roster spot a whole lot because you collect your team, right? And, if you have too many good players, it shouldn't be a problem, right? It shouldn't happen too often. So taking away a bench spot sort of levels the playing field a little bit, right? The shallower the roster, the less noticeable a difference in skill level is across all owners, right? And if you just want to think about that in a simpler way, think about a league where you have 5 people on your roster versus a league where you have 10 people, where each team has 10 people on their roster. Obviously, there'd be a bigger difference between first and last in the the bigger roster league.
Like even someone who doesn't listen to Keeping Karlsson knows that like you want to have Jack Eichel and whoever, like as opposed to
the fewer players involved on rosters, I think the less knowledge and skill might be involved. So that's what makes me a little reticent. Although I do like reestablishing the free agent pool, like rejuvenating or filling it a little better than it currently is. So in any case, I like whatever the cons are of taking away a bench slot, they outweigh any pros of adding face-off wins to me.
Okay, so Dave, do you have any qualms with where we are at this point?
Sure. I mean, you're making it easier for everyone. The less players on a team, the easier it is for simpletons like yourself to win the league. And, like the stream scheme like yourself specializes in picking up waiver people who are less than 2% owned. And so obviously I'm delving into people that you've never even heard of. So obviously I have qualms, but I digress.
So yeah, like I'm sure there are some people listening right now who are like, there's face-off win truthers out there, right? Who will like go to the wall to support face-off wins. And I remember that like some of our patrons have told us about leagues where they're like it's the kitchen sink, like every single category, because it doesn't matter what the category is. It's just another data point to evaluate and weigh and predict and project in trying to win your fantasy league. So I see Dave's argument that face-off wins, I think, is the pro competition choice, but taking away bench slot is probably the pro fun choice. And I think I'm almost tempted to switch.
Well, it's too late. Let's move forward. But by the way, also we're not talking about making the league like super shallow, right? It's a 14-team league, and we're going to be, if we move from 18 roster spots to 17, that's still 238 people owned at a given time. So if you look at the NHL last year, the 238th leading scorer in the league, and obviously it's not only about points, but the 238th leading scorer in the league was Will Butcher with 30 points. So. And obviously that's not counting goalies, so it's not perfect, but I'm just saying it's still like, it's not as if these rosters now are going to be all superstars and there's going to be like great players in free agency. We're just talking about taking away one spot. So I don't think it's that drastic.
It's literally adding 14 players to the free agent pool. So
yeah,
it's a very subtle change.
Yeah. Okay. So I like it. What's next, John?
Okay. So we're going to go to the 3-6 matchup. So right now the 4 seed has moved through on the top end of the skater division, and we're going to move to the bottom end. We're going to go to the 3-6 matchup. Here's where we get the infamous subtract a bench spot and add a utility slot. And it's going against just no bench slots. Your whole roster is active at all times. So it's basically no sit start decisions that you have to make versus making the team just a little bit smaller and a little bit more active with subtracting a bench and adding utility.
Okay, you want me to go?
Yeah.
You just pointed at me and then you talked, Brian.
Oh, I didn't know that you saw. Okay, go ahead.
I'm watching everything. I don't know how you arrange your screen when we do these recordings. I got everything available. I am a producer here.
Elam's commenting because I mentioned in the private chat that he should go first. You didn't look like you were gearing up to say anything. Your arms were still both by your side.
I'm always ready to go, man. Okay, so we're talking about, just to recap after this fun argument. So we're talking about either we will change the rules so that there is one fewer bench spot and one added utility spot. So basically the overall roster size is the same, but on a given night, you're playing more of your players. And then the other, no, John.
The overall roster size goes down by 1.
Okay. What's the suggestion? Read it again.
So -1 bench slot plus 1 utility slot. So your overall roster goes down by 1 in the bench area, and it adds an extra utility spot where you can play whoever you want.
So do you have 18 players still, or do you have 17?
You have 17, and one more of them is going to be active than before.
Got it. Okay.
What? Wait, I still don't understand. You're saying, okay, right now we have 4 bench spots,
right.
And you're saying with this change, we're going to do what?
You're going to subtract one of those bench slots.
So now there's only 3 bench spots.
So you would still have 18 players.
No. Because the bench slot went away.
-1+1, but -1+1 means
it's -1 plus an active, right? So you're subtracting a player from your roster altogether, and then once you have those, what is it, 19 players now?
No, 17.
Okay, so now you have 17 players, and before there were
18.
there were a bunch that were 3 that were now inactive, right?
Yeah, on your bench.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so you guys.
I think I've got this.
Apologies. I wish we could edit that out.
We can actually. You know what? We do have that power, John. Why don't you introduce?
Okay.
The whole thing, and I'll also take out the whole argument Brian and I had about who's going to talk first. Just go from where you introduced this whole matchup again.
I think the easiest way, you've probably got it, but just in case you need it, it's like deleting one bench spot and converting another bench spot to util. Right?
No, it doesn't. No, that's not what
that's what I thought it was. That's what he thought. That's not what it is.
We're literally keeping the roster size the same, but making it an extra active spot and one less bench spot. That's what it is.
Correct.
Okay, so go ahead. So start over.
So okay. So now we're going to move to the bottom end of the skater division where we have the 3 seed taking on the 6 seed. The 3 seed is the infamous subtract a bench slot, add a utility slot. So the roster stays the same side, but it's 1 extra active player per night. And that's taking on the 6 seed, which is just no bench slots whatsoever. Your whole roster is active at all times.
So this is an interesting one. It's one of those things where you have to take some time to like wrap your head around what the implications would be, right? Like if you had no bench spots at all and everyone was active, that means that if your team that week has like more games played overall, like I think there's going to be more luck that way. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian or Dave, like, or John. Like, seems to me like if I have no bench spots and all active player spots, then that means that I'm really just hoping to maximize my number of games played of all of my players. And I don't know if that's what we want. Like with bench spots, that means that like if let's say one of my players is playing a lot of extra games and one of my other players isn't playing a lot of games, it sort of evens out because I'm like moving people up and down my roster. I don't know. That's kind of how it jumps to me. You could tell me if I'm wrong. I think I like having bench spots. Also, I know, Brian, you said you don't like sit-start decisions. So taking away bench spots would take away all of that. You would just play everyone all the time. I don't know. To me, that's like very radical. And I'm sure if I thought about it a lot more, maybe in hindsight, this would have been the kind of thing where it'd be worth it to think about it before and not have these be a surprise. Even though I think there's also been a lot of fun about having these suggestions be surprises. But to me, I just can't get behind removing all the bench spots. So I'll go with the other more conservative one, which still takes away some of the sit-start decisions. We're just saying now 3 bench spots and an extra utility spot as opposed to no bench spots at all, which seems a bit extreme.
I'm voting for no bench spots. Go ahead and call me a radical. Call me the new radical. I think no bench spots is good because it saves you from all the sit-start decisions. And for me, that's I know that's fun for some people and it can be fun for me, but it's so stressful. I make the sit start choice and then I worry all night. And being sometimes our patrons ask us who to sit start and sometimes I answer. It's just like, I don't know. And then I feel personally responsible. So I could save all that stress from the sit start choices. So that's the main reason I like no bench slots. I also don't know, Elon, that it's going to do what you say. If we still have transaction limits in place, yeah, you want the most games played, but here you are, you're getting full value for all the players on your roster, right? So it's not just, your top 10, or actually in our format, I guess it's your top 14 players that you have. You're getting credit for your top 18 players, the 18 best players that you could have assembled for that one night. And I think transaction limits will help keep things in line from people wanting to go extreme streaming because everybody is playing every night to maximize games played. There would be an angle there, but I think the benefit of getting credit for every single one of your players on a Thursday or a Saturday night is worth it.
I just don't think you're thinking it through, Brian. I feel like there's a reason why all fantasy leagues use bench spots.
Why?
And exactly. I just am sort of having a bit of a break. I'm pretty sure I'm right that there's going to be the schedule is going to have a much huger impact on the final result of who wins each week if you remove all the bench spots. If you just give me some time to think about it, which I know you can't because we're recording a live show here, but I'll let you know tomorrow. If this wins, we're going to regret it. I'm telling you.
Why don't you just let it go through and you have time to make your case up until it gets to the finals. And if you still can't make your case, then...
Well, I guess we'll see I'm thinking about other things. Maybe Dave's going to knock it off right now.
So I'm pretty sure Dave is going to knock it off knowing how he plays. I might be wrong. I just want to say one thing before it does go away completely. I do like the idea of a complete the guy that you sit missing out on a hat trick that night. You're getting the full value out of all the players you have on your roster. It's appealing. I don't know how it would totally screw up balancing schedule versus players that you've drafted, but it is an interesting thought experiment that you're never going to miss out on that guy that just missed making the lineup having a huge night randomly, right?
Yeah. Okay. Actually, I can articulate this a little more now that I was listening to you, John, and I was also thinking at the same time. But it was a good point, Brian. Think of a Saturday night. Okay, most of the teams are playing, but not all of them are. Right. Let's say your roster. Normally on a Saturday night in a league with bench spots, we're both me and you are both going to fill our rosters. Right. It's just a matter of deciding who to put where. But you're going to have 10 players playing or whatever it is, and I'm going to have 10 players playing. It's going to be a fair fight versus. If you just if there were no bench spots and on a typical Saturday night, you might just be unlucky and have a team that was playing only 2 times that week and only played Tuesday, Thursday. And I happen to have so basically that's I think the way to think about it. You think on a busy night, is it fair that you should get so many more games than I get versus if you have bench spots, that just makes sure that we'll both get, the same number of games on a busy night. That's the way I think about it. But anyways, how about let's not debate this anymore. Yeah. Let's see if Dave even lets us go through, and then we'll debate it more if we need to.
This is an easy decision. Obviously, no bench slots is a rookie move that Brian likes because he doesn't like to check his lineup. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Elon is the better in-season manager. Brian is the better drafter, and there's no in between. What we're looking at here is if you want to be in a more competitive league or if you want to be in a more lackluster league. If you want to be in a more competitive league, you want someone that are setting their lineups, looking at the lineups every day, determining, okay, what is this team playing for? Like maybe they might
disagree.
All
So
right, go
hard
ahead.
that it's I think it's more competitive to have no like you are accountable for all 18 of your skaters or your players every single night.
You
I think
just
that's
start
very
them every
competitive.
time. There's no thought behind it. You just start them all.
Well, no, there's thought about who they are.
Yeah, Brian, it sounds like, Brian, you've made this point. It seems like I get what you're saying, Brian. Like you're saying you want to give the value to building the best team and you don't want all these like day in, day out like fluctuations to affect. It's like I was smart. Like Dave said, right? Not the part about how you're not all the insults part, but the part about how Dave said you're good at drafting. Obviously, you're good at you want to be the person who you build a good team. Every once in a while, you make a smart decision to add and drop, to like improve your team. But maybe you don't want to have to focus so much on the day-to-day managing and like deciding who to sit and who to start. You like want to just be proud that I built the best team, and now look how great my team is doing. And other players might want to play in a way where they want to be more active and have to make these decisions, which I agree does add some randomness to it because you could just make a mistake and sit a hat trick. I can see arguments for both.
Yeah.
I think that there's unintended consequences to the no bench spots thing, which we could get into later. I think I laid out a small part of it. But anyways, that's decision's been made. So, John, where do we stand right now?
Okay, so we just had the three seed.
I interrupted Dave. Dave, did you finish your point?
He's good. Dave's fine.
Okay.
You're subtracting a bench slot and adding a utility spot. I think in short, it's manipulating the matchups versus manipulating the waiver wire is kind of the general idea that Dave, that we were discussing.
And by the way, Brian, this is still, John, if I can, this is still what's going through is still more in line with what you like, right? It's not like the crazy extreme, but we're still making one less bench spot and one more active spot. So you're still getting something that you like here, and we'll see if that goes through.
Wow, I totally believe you.
So that is going to take on the winner of the 2 seed versus 7 seed. The 2 seed is replacing a utility spot with a center spot. So it's taking away the flexibility of the utility spot and making centers more valuable versus the 7 seed, which is minus 0.25 points per penalty minute for each skater. So these are very different. I'm curious to see where you guys go. I'll let Brian maybe take this one from the beginning.
Okay. I'll go quick on this one. Penalty minutes. I love the idea that they're worth negative. They're also fairly randomly distributed. This is sort of the same argument I had about goalie shutouts. You might be able to predict who's more prone to taking penalties. Like this is going to kill the value of like someone like Tom Wilson, right? And I'm all for that. Let's kill the value of Tom Wilson. But at the same time, I think it would be more important. Like, I think it's more useful to add a centerman. We were talking about the glut of centermen in free agency and how they really are disregarded and forgotten. If you make the position a little deeper, it's the same way. Like if you're in a league with 3 defensemen and you add a 4th, it's like, oh, like I need to take this position seriously now. So seeing as that we didn't add face-off wins, which would have increased the value of centers probably a little too much and in such a boring way. That's really my main problem with it. I just want to restate. I love my util spots. I really am because I love lineup flexibility. In fact, like if you could take away positions, I'm like, that would be a fun league that I'd like to play in. However, between the 2 suggestions, I like replacing a utility with a center spot. So you have to have more centers.
I don't know. To me, this is a hard disagree, actually. First of all, what you just said about you'd prefer to have more flexibility. This is like taking away flexibility. Now we're making it harder to set the lineups. But anyways, also, I kind of I'm actually really, this is not a vote against something, even though I don't really love the idea of having more centers than left wings or right wings. That to me is a bit weird. But I actually really like this idea of adding PIMs because you know what? We never pay attention to PIMs. We don't even know about PIMs because none of us are in leagues. Like I'm saying, none of us, like me or you, Brian, neither of us are in leagues that count PIMs. Tom Wilson is the guy who would be affected. He had 128 PIMs last year. And so if we charged him 0.25 negative for every penalty minute, he'd lose 32 points. We would have gone from his 296 points to whatever, minus 32. So it's not a huge drop in his value.
But he also missed a bunch of games due to suspension.
So yeah, really, it would be even less of an impact overall. Whatever.
No, it would be a bigger impact.
Doesn't matter. Like he had 128 PIMs and 296 overall points. So you could make that effective.
I see.
Just go put it out of 82 games and you'll figure that out. But anyway, I think that it would be fun to keep track of PIMs a little bit. You're getting a little ding for getting a penalty. When I'm watching a game now, it's another thing that makes it more fun for me, that I'm like, oh no, Crosby, why did you trip that guy? You just cost me 0.5 points because it was 2 penalty minutes. So I think it adds some fun. I don't think it's a big hurt. And also then it helps you and I as hosts of the show, because now maybe we actually are paying attention a little bit more to penalty minutes. When people ask us about who gets lots of penalty minutes, we kind of know about them. And I really like that idea. And I really don't like the idea of changing the roster. So to me, it's actually an easy decision the other way. So I'm very curious to see where Dave will go. But I see you wanted to say something first, Brian.
Yeah, before he does, I'm going to rebut by saying PIMs are an unacceptable category. I've already taken that position. They just should not be considered in fantasy hockey unless you're just in the kind of league that just wants as many data points as possible. And my second point is that what we all really want is credit for penalties drawn, right? That's what needs to be in fantasy hockey. It's not on Yahoo. I don't think it's on Fantrax yet either, but it needs to be, because that is the penalty set that we all want, or penalty differential, something to describe, because the value should not be based on taking penalty minutes. It should be about drawing penalty minutes.
That's fair. That's not an option, right? But I get what you're saying. So Dave, what's going to go ahead? Are we going to convert a util to a center, or are we going to add, well, we might do neither, but which do you like better between that and negative 0.25 for penalty minutes?
Negative 2.5 points for penalty minutes for sure. I really like that, because obviously we hear it in the patron chat every day. Like everyone's like, oh, well, this person's not that good because they're taking so many penalties. I'd love to see that reflected in fantasy somehow. Yeah,
Brian, when you say penalty minutes are unacceptable, I assume you meant that when we give positives for it and it gives these bangers like a Tom Wilson more value than they deserve, I would have thought you'd be okay with negative as long as it's not like a significant thing.
I do like it in a way that it does, but I also just think it's too, I think it's the same way that I think about face-off wins. It's I do not want to lose my week because I don't know, some random guy who gets, who can, I'm looking at the penalty minute list, because Charlie McAvoy, he who has 45 penalty minutes in 17-18, I don't lose a matchup because that was the week he took one penalty on a Sunday night.
Brian, would you prefer to miss out on the KKUPFL 1 patron playoffs because Johnny Gaudreau just doesn't score a point, and when they score 7 goals, would you prefer that?
Yeah, I appreciate I appreciate you never letting me forget that. By the way, I appreciate you pointing that out, by the way, because it is so unlikely to happen, and it's the only way that I was held back from winning the championship this year.
Brian's
it was just a bunch of things conspired terribly against me. It was all bad luck.
Yeah, Brian's like the Suri of fantasy hockey last year. The only way Suri gets voted out of Survivor is with some weird circumstance. She doesn't ever actually get voted out normally. Anyway, so Brian, to your point, if you lost your matchup because Charlie McAvoy took a penalty and gave you negative 0.5 to your total score, then I think you had other problems. You should have just been better.
Or I didn't.
But you know what I mean? It's not a category.
We've had KKUPFL matchups be that close.
Okay, but so why not? It's the same thing for why we're making shutouts that's gone on so far to make shutouts worth more. I think in a categories league, I agree with you that I wouldn't want to make negative penalty minutes a category because it's so random. But if you want to throw someone negative 0.5 every single time they take a penalty, a 2-minute penalty, I don't think it's that impactful. And if it doesn't cost you the matchup, it's fun.
Okay.
So Charlie McAvoy screwed up. So that's why.
I will share the rest of my thoughts in the next round.
Okay, which is right now, or what? What's going on?
So
John?
Right now, we're now that the 7th seed has moved on. Big upset there.
I can't believe it.
I know. I'm shocked, actually. We almost had the 1, 2, 3, and 4 seeds move through, but that was the only upset of this round.
Nobody wants a center spot.
So apparently my seeding wasn't too batshit. So we are going to have the number 3 seed take on the 7 seed right now. So it's minus a bench plus utility. It's the confusing one versus the minus 0.25 points for a penalty minute. Olan, take this one away. Which one do you want to see go through to take on the -1 bench slot? It's going to be really funny if the 3 seed goes through and it is -1 bench slot plus 1 utility slot versus -1 bench slot, but we'll see if that actually happens.
That sounds too annoying. And I like this penalty minute thing, or at least I'd like to discuss the penalty minute one versus the taking away a bench spot. That sounds like a fun matchup to discuss on the show versus this weird, like, taking away a bench spot, but yes or no to utility. So I'm going to vote for penalty minutes. I don't think it's that big of an impact. And again, I feel like it's just going to make it a little more fun for little cost. We get to pay attention to another category. And if Charlie McAvoy goes and trips a guy, that's not good. He didn't help the Bruins there, and he didn't help your fantasy team. So I'm voting for that. I'm voting for that.
You're voting for giving Brian an aneurysm is essentially what's happening right now.
Well, I'm gonna have an aneurysm if we have to do that super confusing -1 bench slot plus 1 like that would be very difficult. So I'm half considering siding with Elon here. On the other hand, Elon, does it change your mind at all if giving negative points for penalty minutes disincentivizes you from starting players?
No,
just for fear they'll take a penalty.
I mean, who are used like Brad Marchand takes like some penalties, right? Like Adam M joked in the chat here, Marchand's value has just created. Like Marchand had 96 PIMs last year, but there's no way he's gonna take enough PIMs in a game, even if he takes a 5-minute fighting major. So that's -2.5. But if he takes well, I guess it's possible there. Like, I guess in the craziest of circumstances, then he gets ejected from the game. Yes, I guess every once in a while you could have a crazy situation like that. But most of the time, we're talking like the same as a hit, right? Like a 0.25 for a penalty. Like, it just doesn't seem like that much. Like, as long as they get a couple shots or a block or a hit, then they're going to make up for that anyway. So that doesn't really bother me too much.
We have Adam M in the chat, by the way, saying, like, taking issue with me saying PIMs are random. He says they're not that random. And my counterpoint is that over 82, and he's like, you look at Marchand and Kachuk and Matthews and Barkov, and you can easily group those guys and know how many penalty minutes relative to one another they're going to get. But my counterpoint is that, over 82 games, not random, over 7 days in a matchup, they can be very random. Okay,
but Brian, then I got to ask you, how is this any different than shutouts getting extra points, which you were for?
Because PIMs aren't acceptable.
Okay. So then your whole thing about random versus not random, you're now saying that's not actually how you feel.
That was just to address, well, no, because you're right, because save percentage, same thing, right? It's more predictable. Anything is more predictable over 82 games. So it's just about what we're willing to tolerate. I'm okay if my goalie has a bonkers game, either great, like in a good way or a bad way, and wins or loses me the week. Like that seems reasonable. So it drives me crazy. But I would be really sad if I had 4 skaters each take a minor penalty and it took me out of the matchup.
I guess I see what you're saying. John, do we have the option here? You're the boss. Could we tweak the suggestion?
Yeah, I think tweaking the weighting of certain things is acceptable. I think when most people were submitting, they were very general about adding certain things. If they got specific, I wouldn't want to go crazy, but I think adjusting weighting is acceptable. What if we
made it 0.2, -0.2 for a PIM? Does that change it for you at all, or are you just unacceptable no matter what?
Yeah, I just don't love it.
All right, so you're gonna vote to move forward this weird add and remove a thing. You're going with that.
Yeah, well, I think it just means yes. All right, it does. And if we get there, we'll get there, and I think I can make it really super simple for everyone.
Okay, maybe it doesn't matter because Dave is breaking the tie here. Dave, what do you say?
-2.5 for penalty minutes.
Yeah.
All right. So
okay. So that is taking on the remove a bench slot, essentially decreasing the roster size in the championship later on. We will come back to that matchup. Any questions or comments about the skater division before we move on to the transactions division?
No, I'm ready. Let's go. Yeah, it's been a long, fun show. I hope the listeners are enjoying it. I'm having a great time, guys. Brian, how are you feeling right now?
Loving it. I hope people listening are getting ideas for their own maybe these are ideas you haven't thought of yet and you want to test out and let us know how they work. Do that.
Okay, so let's move on to the transactions division. This is basically just about how teams are managed. So waiver ads and trades specifically, really. So we'll start with the 4 seed versus the 5 seed in the transactions division. These are specifically head to head. The 4 seed is add to the max waiver ads per week, and the 5 seed is subtract to the max waiver ads per week. It didn't specify the amount. So I think we'll start with Brian on this one. Would you rather have the 4 seed win and add max waiver ads, or have the 5 seed win and subtract max waiver ads each week?
Okay, so right now we have 4 ads a week. And we do fab every day. There's a fab auction, so you have a budget of $100 for the season, fake dollars, and then you decide if you really want a player. You can bid anywhere from 0 to however much fab you have. So 0 to 100 on your first bid, and then you get the point. So I am probably for, and I think you're going to notice a definite difference that Dave has already pointed out between me and Elon here, which is that, Elon is like a hardcore streamer. And I think that's why he invited Dave to come on the show, who is like the most hardcore streamers.
I'm the ultimate champion in all the land.
Yeah. Elon stacks the jury here.
Brian, for a fact, don't lie to people. I suggested to you that we do this, and the third person would be the couple winner before Dave won. Go back and check the messages. I suggested it before Dave won the league. Okay.
Yeah. So you lucked out here. I think I'm ready for it. So, but we have 2 very big streamers, and then there's me, who it's like I like to tweak. I don't like to construct and deconstruct and reconstruct my team every single week. So that's why I know I'm going to get outvoted, but if I could make it 5 ads a week or 3 ads a week, I'm going to 3.
Okay, Brian, how about this? I'm going to make it easy for you. I don't really like either of these. I think we've really sort of honed in on the perfect number at 4. 3 ads per week really hurts you, because let's say you do, it's low. Let's say, Monday, you decide to pick someone up. You had a free agent you've been waiting for. You already used up your ads last week. Monday morning comes, you add your guy. Good. Then all of a sudden, let's say Tuesday, you suffer an injury, just bad luck. So now you have to replace that player. All of a sudden, you're down to 1 more ad for the whole rest of the week.
I agree.
And I feel like the fewer ads you have, the more luck there is with injuries. Because I've said,
or the more careful you need to be with your ads.
Of course. I've said before that in a perfect world, the rule I would want to add is you get unlimited ads if they're replacing injuries. And
that is not what is up in this one. No spoilers, Elon.
That's but I don't think that's possible in Yahoo or whatever. So that's a fun one. But I feel like you shouldn't be penalized for an injury. You should be able to replace that guy for free. And then you should have 2-3 ads per week of tweaking. But Brian, let's just move it to 3, because I don't want to change it anyway. So we can just let the next one win, because do you at least agree with me there that you're happy with 4, or are you actually, I want to just get in your head, are you happy with 4, or does changing it to 3 actually something that interests you?
I'm happy with 4, but with 4 moves, I usually hang on to 1 or 2 for the weekend in case I had the last couple of days of a matchup, in case I have an injury, or if I want to look ahead to the next matchup. I think there's still, you have to just be a little more careful. Right, if you have fewer ads, there's a way to manage it. So you can get hurt by unlucky injuries and whatever, but not so often, and not so much that you can't take any control back.
No, I mean, it's not, you're saying it now, but it's we've been joint owners in a league that had 3 ads per week. And if you suffer 2 injuries in a single week, you're really behind the 8 ball, because the other person has 3 streams and you basically have 1, but you're probably just holding it because you're nervous about another injury. So I think it does I think it's not fair to say, it's almost I'm not saying you're saying this, how people make the argument about rich people say, oh, poor people should just work harder and then they'll make more money. And it's if you had bad circumstances and bad luck, it's maybe hard to work your way out of it. And I think this might be one of those where if under normal circumstances, you're right, the 3 should be enough, but you could really get hammered if you get some bad luck. But anyways, I'll agree with you for now, because I think 5 is too crazy. The argument against having too many streams is that then it becomes a league where if you're not like making moves every day, you have no chance. Because if you're playing against someone like Dave, who's really maximizing their games played. So, you know, and I think we need a balance where we want the Cupful to be a fun league that lots of people can play, but we also want them to have a life and not have to like be making moves every single day to have a chance to win. So I guess I'd lean 3 over 5, but I just really like 4.
Okay, so you're just pushing it through to avoid Dave breaking the tie. Just curious, Dave, which one would you have come down on the side of adding a waiver ad or subtracting a waiver ad?
Oh yeah, okay.
I mean, the argument against is like, hey, let's just, like Elon and Brian said, like, let's just angle this league towards the beginner. If you're looking to if you're looking to get more competitive, if you're looking to get more towards people who actually know what they're doing, the correct number is 7, which is essentially.
I'm so happy I just asked you that question.
One ad a day, and that's why Brian sucks.
Hey, I gotta step in here, Dave. Brian is my best friend in the whole world.
Wow, Elon going hard to restore his reputation for how he treats me. I think Dave has this thing that his preference is the best and hardest way to do it. And anyone else, like we've had this conversation about points versus categories too. And Dave, I'm not even giving you the floor to have that right now. But with Dave, it's either you do it his way or you're a simpleton. And we all disagree.
All right. Well, let's.
It doesn't matter what Dave thinks because 3 max waiver ads per week moves through to take on the winner of the next matchup, which is the 1 versus 8 seed. The 1 seed is you get a free waiver ad for every IR move. Essentially, any player that gets injured, you get a free waiver ad that doesn't count against your max waiver ads per week. Taking on the 8 seed, which is just eliminating the fab altogether and making it, I'm guessing,
regular free agents.
Yeah, free agents based on priority or whatever. So which one, Elon? I'll let you take the floor.
Okay, first of all, I want to say let's all elevate this discussion here. Let's not have any insults. Like, I want us all to just discuss the issues at hand and not.
Okay, so Brian doesn't suck. He's just not as good.
Dave,
I'm gonna mute you, Dave.
Dave has also alienated like half of a KKUPFL division before. Right. So like this is just his thing. Don't take what he says seriously.
Okay.
Whatever Dave thinks of you, valued listener, I disagree. And let's think positively of you.
Yeah, I just want us to, we have a very important decision to make here today, and I don't think we have time for any, we got to just get down to brass tacks here. So we're discussing my crazy idea, I think, John, of not counting, if you're replacing an injured player, then that shouldn't count against your ads per week, which is impossible, but just like a fun thought experiment. And Brian said we have to have some whimsy. I love that idea. And the other idea is you're saying we're switching away from fab and going to regular free agents. So again, Brian already explained it super quickly. Every day we have this auction and you're bidding against people for free agents. So it's not as if if someone got injured and you happen to not be paying attention, then all of a sudden you lost out on that player and it's over. Everyone has the opportunity before they go to bed to take a look at what free agents they want to try to add for the next day. And whoever wants the player the most by bidding the most is going to get that player. I think fab is more fair. I think it's better. I do think that as far as making the league more accessible to the average person, which I know is against what Dave wants to do, but most people are used to regular free agents. A lot of people sometimes get confused with fab if they've never used it before, which I totally understand. But I really like fab. So I'll go with my whimsical idea, which isn't possible since Brian said that's the way I'm supposed to go, and say that I don't think replacing injured players should count against your acquisitions. And maybe it is possible, I guess theoretically, if we had a commissioner in each division, someone could go in and increase someone's weekly ads every single time they're replacing an injury. It would just take a lot of more manual work, but maybe if we had enough volunteers, we could actually do that. So maybe it's not impossible. So I'm moving that one through if Brian agrees.
Yeah, I'm also going to vote to add making it a free waiver ad if you have someone who goes on it. For everyone you move to injured reserve, you get a free waiver ad. I'm into it. Eliminating fab. Elon, I hear what you're saying about fab being sort of a difficult, a less accessible feature of a fantasy league, except I think it's that way for the first 3 days of someone trying to use fab. And then it really does level the playing field so that somebody who can't access the internet or read hockey news or manage their fantasy hockey team at work or at school or doing whatever they do during the day doesn't have that unfair advantage over somebody who does not have that same opportunity. So I think Fab is actually makes things more more competitive, and it's not just a race to your phone, or like I was going to say race to your computer. That really dates me. But a race to your phone to add the guy before anybody else does. So that's why I like Fab a lot.
I'm sorry, I have to interject because I've shortened these to fit onto a bracket. I believe this idea was going to the priority system, where based on how many waiver ads you've made, each day there's a 24-hour cycle, kind of like the Fab cycle, where you can put in your waiver picks, and based on priority instead of on money, you get it if you're at the highest priority.
Oh, so there's still waivers.
Whatever. Okay,
Yes,
it's done. Anyways,
correct.
It lost.
I still prefer Fab.
Okay, yeah. I just wanted to throw that in there. I didn't want to shortchange the submission.
Right.
Okay, so that means that the 1 seed is taking on the 5 seed in the next matchup. It's the free waiver ad for injury versus the 3 max waiver ads per week. Brian, let's start with you. Which one do you like better of these 2 options?
I'll make this easy because this is, if you're taking away an ad, it's in direct opposition of the competition feature, the competing feature for this bracket, which is getting a free ad. Here's your hard luck ad. You have an injured player, don't sweat it. Whereas if we're taking it down to 3 moves, it's like, oh man, you have an injured player, sweat harder. And I prefer the former. So I'm going to vote to move through the first seed, which is a free waiver ad for IR moves.
Brian, can I suggest something, or maybe I need to ask John for the rules here. Can I suggest that we do something really outside of the box here, something really crazy? Can we move both of them forward and combine them into one rule? Because to me, I feel like if you got an extra ad for every injured player, then you don't need 4 ads per week. So I'd be good to just say, combine them into one super rule, or super rule change, I should say. Decrease the normal maximum ads to 3, but you get free ads every time someone gets injured. What do you think?
Bam!
I think you'd have to do that. I like that idea. I will add those together, and it is a free waiver ad for IR. But if you're not dealing with injuries, you only get 3 max ads per week. I like that. I think that tweak would have to happen if you were giving people free injury moves.
Yeah, because everyone usually has at least 1 injury a week, I feel like, just based on luck. So we'd basically be adding a free ad. We picked 4 for a reason. So this would probably keep it at 4, and it would take away some luck. The thing is, we'll discuss it when we get to its next matchup. I still don't know exactly how we would implement this, but I do like it as something to think about.
Great. So let's go to the bottom half. Well, do we want Dave any tweaks on the top half of the transaction division before we move on to the bottom half?
Don't like it.
Okay. All right. So let's move on.
Perfect. So let's move on to the bottom half of the transaction division. We'll start with the 3-6 matchup. The 3 seed is a 50 transaction per season limit. So 50 total transactions on the season. I don't know if that includes trades or if it's just waiver wires. Taking on the number 6, which is instant trades, which is essentially there's no review period. Nobody can veto trades. It's just they instantly happen. The rosters are switched at time of trade. Enough said. So number 3, max 50. Number 6, instant trades. Brian, why don't you take this one first?
The problem with instant trades is I like the roster changes going through immediately. Waiting for a trade to process is the worst, but it takes away the period where you could be like, oh, wait, that stinks. And we don't have a lot of vetoable trades in the KKUPFL, but let's say a trade did go down, it happened instantly, and Elon and I didn't get a chance to discuss it before players played their games. We'd be sort of in a sticky situation. So this is, I'm for transaction per season limits. I think they do help balance things out between streaming, and I think 50 is generous enough. And I think they help balance out between streaming and drafting quite well. But this is more a vote against instant trades than it is for that limit.
Yeah, I'm with you, Brian. I actually think 50 is even. I think it would be okay to make 50 max. I know this would really make Dave upset because he's, big into doing a lot of streaming, and that would minimize his ability to do that. 50 is still a lot, and we'll see. Anyways, we'll discuss it later when we go through. I agree with you, Brian, though. Like, we want this to be a great league for people to participate in, and while we don't like vetoing trades, it's something that I think has to be done if we want to make it a competitive league. This isn't with your friends. This is with strangers. I don't want one rogue person to, like, that just decides, I'm just going to blow up my team just for fun. I don't want that person like ruining the league for everyone else by making a crazy trade that we can't take back because it's already like affected that night. So let's move forward. The 50 maximum transactions for the season. Currently, there's unlimited per season, and there's just 4 per week. And now the suggestion is to also make a cap for max, just to like decrease some of the streaming a little bit. So, by the way, how many weeks are there, Brian? Do you remember?
Yeah, so this is valuable. So I think there's about 22 weeks in our fantasy season. I'm not 100% sure, but like give or take 1.
Sure.
So that means if you maxed out your moves, it would be 88 moves that you could make. So what we're looking at is taking that down. And I guess that doesn't include the playoffs. So I don't know what we like if this 50 carries through the playoffs, which does make a difference. But
let's make an executive decision. Let's say it doesn't include the playoffs.
Okay, let's say it doesn't. So you have 50 regular season transactions. There's 38 that are left on the table that you could have made. It still gives you 2.5 per week, roughly.
No, I think three and a bit per week, right?
22. Well, you have 50 moves in 22 weeks. So you've got just over 2 weeks. I think 50 might be a touch low, but I think it's still reasonable.
Tweak it again. 88. Let's make it 55, 60. What do you think is a more reasonable
number?
I'd say
60.
All right. So the new rule suggestion, because we've decided tweaks are allowed, 60 ads per season, not including the playoffs. That's what's moving forward. Cool.
So it beats instant trades, and it will take on the winner of the 2-7 matchup, which is the 2 seed, is the ability for a player to cancel his or her trade within 24 hours during the 48-hour trade veto window, taking on the 7th seed, which is no trades. No trades at all.
Woo.
You're stuck with your team and waiver wire ads. So the 2 seed cancel trades within 24 hours, player initiated, versus the 7 seed, which is no trades at all. Elon, what do you think of this matchup?
All right. So first of all, I'll say the no trades at all, I don't mind it. Like, to be honest, the way I play fantasy hockey is I like to draft a team and then I like to tinker through free agency. I don't like the whole having to like make friends with people and suck up to people and be like, hey man, your team looks really good, but I feel like you could use a defense and I happen to have an extra defense. So how about we, work something out? Like the whole thing, it's a bit exhausting to be honest. But on the other hand, like people love making trades. So that would be like a really harsh thing. I think we'd lose like potential couple participants if we just said no trades. The other suggestion, I think it's very interesting, right? Because almost that might take away the need to veto things. Right? 'Cause let's say like Dave really rips someone off, like someone who, well, I guess that won't happen in tier 1, but let's say, in a tier 5 division, you got a pro that just joined the couple and someone who's playing fantasy for like their second time. They make like a really dumb trade and then they accept it. No one even knew it was going down. All of a sudden it gets accepted. And then, it's like Crosby for Ryan O'Reilly or something because Crosby happened to be slumping last week and Ryan O'Reilly is on a nice run. So then everyone's going to be like, what did you do? Steven, why did you make that trade? That was so dumb. Crosby's so much better. I would have given you more if you wanted to trade Crosby, I'll give you this guy. And then Steven has 24 hours to be like, you know what? That was actually a dumb trade. I shouldn't have done that. And then they could cancel it. So then it's sort of self-moderated. If you made a trade, you get 24 hours for people to berate you about it and convince you that you want to cancel it. I don't mind that, actually. I think that just makes it less work for me and you, Brian. And if the bad trade happens, and if the person gets a barrage of messages saying that they would have given him something better, then the person could choose whether or not they want to still let it go through or if they want to change their mind.
I think you've just convinced me in your little spiel there. That I thought you were for sure going to go no trades because I know you don't like no trades, but I know you're considering the fun that everybody likes to have. Canceling trades within 24 hours, my first gut reaction was like, no, like you're accountable for whatever you do. If you agree to make a deal, you can't take it back within 24 hours. But Elon, I'm sure I've shared this idea with you before. Like, I think the ideal trade system that doesn't exist anywhere and will never exist anywhere is like a trade auction. So if you make it, there's a few different like ways it could go down, but I'll just share one. So if you make a trade, that trade goes up, and the league has 48 hours. Everyone in the league has 48 hours. Like that's the price of, if you're selling Nathan McKinnon for whatever package, that package is the highest bid. And that just opens up a bidding process where other teams know, hey, you're selling Nathan McKinnon for this much. Can I put together a better package for you? And that would be one way to avoid like crazy rip-off trades and vetoes and whatever. So I kind of like that aspect is possible with your ability to cancel a trade within 24 hours, right? It's not just canceling and saying no. It's like canceling and saying no because I just got this better offer. So I'm with you, Elon. If that's the spirit of that rule, and it's not just like, getting scared because you told a friend about your trade and they're like, oh, you're an idiot, then I'm for it.
Okay, so I'm very curious, even though this one's already going through, Dave, I'm actually really curious to hear your idea, because I just want to, I don't know how much legs this idea has. I think I need more. I might even want John's, input here also. Like, is this a crazy idea, or is this something we should actually be considering?
So I seeded it at 2 because I thought it was like, I tried to seed the more interesting thing. I tried to see the most interesting things higher, right? And this to me was, I didn't even think about the bidding, like the auction process that you and Brian have kind of brought up. I think that would be hard to, like you wouldn't be able to offer through Yahoo once a trade has already been posted. You'd have to do it through back channels. But I do like the idea of that, and the idea that like you may see your competitor getting a package that you don't want them to get, so you'll offer something to that person even higher than you might have, just to stop Brian from getting a player that I don't want him to have when I'm going against him in the top 4 or something. I think that it's a really interesting idea. So this is one that I think does have I hope has a lot of legs in this game we're playing right now in this podcast, because I think it would make that 24-hour bidding for an elite player really fun. Like it could be the most fun you have that season, trying to get McKinnon over the guy that's just ahead of you in the standings. Right. So I like it. I like it a lot.
What do you think, Dave?
I hate all of them. If I had, it's basically choosing between the lesser of two evils, right? You're saying cancel trades within 24 hours or no trades at all?
No, I don't even care so much. I'm just curious about the canceling trades you're saying is a bad idea. I just want to get your sense on that one specifically. Like the person who made the trade, if they get enough feedback telling them it was dumb, they have the option to cancel it.
No, it's ridiculous, because like I have spent so many hours putting in the work, like convincing someone, like, listen, this is a good trade. Let me convince you why this like will work out for you. And then the minute it goes through, someone puts it up on the patron site and everyone ragdolls them. They're like, what were you thinking?
That's even more because the champion doesn't like it, because it's an unfair advantage to the lesser teams.
It takes away from the person that does the negotiation. Like I've been negotiating for this person for like 3 weeks.
I still to negotiate against you. Like it's not like I can just.
And all of a sudden, like you get 3 people saying like, "Oh, what a dummy." Like and then all of a sudden,
if you negotiated well, the person's gonna believe that this is a great deal.
It doesn't matter what it doesn't matter. They will believe whatever the group sense says about the deal. It doesn't matter what they think. They're gonna think about what the group thinks.
All right. Well, so it's interesting, right? Because the thing is, I'm interested in hearing what Dave thinks, because I feel like Dave might have the voice of some of the people. I could see some people hearing about this rule change and be like, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." I could imagine a lot of people.
Why would I even try to do a trade if I just know it's going to be like vetoed or highest bidder against? Like,
to be fair,
at that point, I wouldn't even try to like start trade negotiations, because I know it's just no point at that point.
Yeah, well, to me that's fine, but right. I don't mind that. But
it does work against the front runner, right? Because you're going to be less likely to want to give play. Like as a middling tier 2 player, it's an interesting idea that will maybe stop some of the people ahead of me, like from just flat out getting a player that I didn't even know was available, right? So I don't know. I think that
I agree with that. It will. I agree with that it will stop, Brian from swindling. That's how he won
Oh my
one
God.
a couple of years ago. It'll stop like the host of the show from swindling someone just so they can say, "Hey, I made a trade with the host of keeping Karlsson," like like that kind of stuff.
I don't think anybody makes it that easy for me.
No, I
All
don't
right.
think
They
so
did 2
either.
years ago.
Anyway, so it did get pushed through, and it's going up against the 3 seed, which is the 60 max transactions for the regular season. So I don't know. These are very, very interesting. I guess I forget who went last, but Brian, which one do you like better to push through to take on the combined free waiver for IR and 3 max waiver? It's going to take that one on, the winner of this. So 60 max transactions or the ability to cancel a trade within 24 hours.
Oh, this is a tough one because I like them both. I like the fact that you need to be a little judicious with a 60 transaction limit. You can't just go, all out every single, like you need to pick your spots a little more carefully. So I like that. But I really like the idea now. Like, I feel like canceling your trade within 24 hours is such a strange frame for what I hope this accomplishes. But if it does accomplish it, I think, honestly, one of the hardest parts about commissioning the KKUPFL or any fantasy league, if you want to try and do it fairly, is measuring is what to do about vetoable trades. Is this trade veto worthy? Is this trade not? And I feel like this, like being able to cancel your trade within 24 hours because you might get a better offer within it. And if everybody understands, hey, once a trade goes down, send me something. You've got 24 hours to do it. I think that might take away some of that pain that is caused by trades that are lopsided and trying to figure out if it's crossed that line of vetoable. So and if nobody does offer a better package, then it's on them, right? It's like, if you think this trade was unfair, you had a chance to do better. And of course, like, the person could be like, who made the initial trade could be like, no, I think this package is better, and be wrong about it in someone's opinion. But I still think I like it. I like it. I like the flurry of activity it might inspire, and I like the fact that it might help self-correct any veto-worthy trade. So I'm going to move canceling trades forward.
It's funny to see Dave being so angry about this.
Mhm.
I do have a lot of fears about getting backlash, and I don't know if that should be something I take into account when we do this, because I do also like the 60 moves thing. But I don't want to send this to a tiebreaker because we basically know what Dave's going to say. So basically, I have to so basically, if I say 60 moves, basically I get to make the decision, right? Because I know that Dave is not going to want to do the trade thing.
You're the swing vote, Elon. Do the right thing.
If we don't do this crazy trades thing, then it just means, Brian, you and I have to like do more work vetoing trades, and people are mad at us rather than being mad at someone else. But they're still going to be mad at us anyways because we made this what they'll think is a stupid rule in the first place. All right, let's just, Brian, what do you think I should do? What do you really want to do?
These are two good rules. I could see us, like, at the end of the day, we're committing to picking one on this episode. I think both are worth considering past the episode. So let's pretend it doesn't matter.
Okay,
I would like to see the ability to cancel within 24 hours go up against the free waiver for injuries. Like, I think that's an interesting matchup, or more interesting matchup potentially than the 60 max transactions against the free waiver prior.
I'm with you, John. Like, from I think the fun route to go is that's the chaos, the excitement of the canceling of the 24 hours thing. So that's where I lean.
Okay, you know what? Matthew in the chat is liking it. John seems to like it. Let's do it. Let's move it forward. Let's see how far we can take this. If you make a trade, then within 24 hours, you get to cancel it if enough people berate you and convince you that it was a bad idea.
So the transactions division is the first division where the top 2 seeds are moving through to the championship for that division.
Okay, so let's go to the final division.
Okay, so I've called this the commissioner division. Really, this is just kind of the high level miscellaneous division, the other bucket. So let's start at the top end of the division once again, where the 4 or 5 seeds are fighting it out. The 4 seed is an auction draft for tier 2, and the 5th seed is all tiers are auction drafts. Get rid of the snake drafts. So 4 seed versus 5 seed. Let's start with Brian. Which one do you like better? auction draft, just add it back to tier 2, or all of the tiers are auction drafts?
Every tier auction draft. It's like Fab. Okay, Fab is confusing for 3 days, maybe a matchup, maybe 2 weeks. Like maybe if you're new, depending on your like how quickly you learn and how familiar you are with fantasy hockey, there is a learning curve, but that learning curve is so worth it. Auction draft should be the default form of drafting for fantasy hockey, and the obvious pitfall is that if someone doesn't show up, there has not been artificial intelligence created that is like clever enough to mimic another human auctioneer. And it really just does mess up things worse than if it's a snake draft. Although snake draft, you do end up with like these weird guys ranked at the top, and the auto draft teams ends up with a bunch of weirdos anyway. So I like the difference is that doesn't mess with anyone else's draft in a snake draft the way it does if an auction price has gone wild in an auction draft. But like I don't know what to say, because I want to say assuming that everyone shows up. I'm just going to say every draft should be an auction draft, and people will show up because they're so much fun. They're the best way to draft. Snake draft, so much is already decided just by order. Auction draft is like the purely democratic free market draft format.
Okay, Bernie Sanders. So,
well, free market would be a more right-wing ideology, actually.
Oh, you're right. What do I know? It's 10 o'clock. We've been doing this for 2 hours already. All right. Auction drafts are more fair, for sure. Everyone has the same opportunity to get every player.
And we're still in the first round.
Wait, sorry, what? We're
still in the first round of all the, yeah.
No, we're down to the final 2 in each division except for this one. We're doing good. All right. So the problem, of course, is, Brian, it's not maybe your snake draft auto drafted team will be a little like wonky, like not wonky even. They'll have a couple players that maybe were dumb, but overall that team will still be decent enough. If someone doesn't show up for their auction draft, it ruins the league, not in that like it messed up everyone's draft. It ruins the league because that team that auto drafted is going to be terrible. That person's going to become inactive. The no one's going to want to take over this team. The whole then division becomes weird because once a week someone plays that person who has this terrible auto drafted team, and it's a free win, and it just sucks. Like, so I just kind of feel like in a perfect world, if everyone showed up, and also we already solved this problem because we just have on our sign up form, when you sign up for the KKUPFL, we ask you what you want to do, snake draft or auction draft. And then if we're able to put a bunch of people that want to auction draft together, we will. So it's like when you're saying tier 2 auction draft, at least that one is like seems like a little more further. We can say once you've made it up that high, then you have to commit. And if you can't make it, let's say then you're out of tier 2 or something. If we want it to be strict like that, forcing everyone to auction draft is just going to mess up the league. Like, so.
But the KKUPFL tier 1 is auction draft. No one should be auction drafting in the KKUPFL for the first time when they're in tier 1, because tier 1, the top 6 teams out of 14 can return to tier 1 the following season, plus the team that wins the consolation playoff bracket. No, that's 7. Dude, like, I don't know the rules of my own league. Come on. So like the stakes are high, and I guess that might be on the person entering the KKUPFL, like entering tier 1, to find other ways to practice their auction drafting. But I feel like the incumbents, having already auction drafted, have an advantage. Anyone who's auction drafted before has an advantage. And so, I mean, I guess forcing everyone to auction draft would be doing them a favor.
Okay, fine. It would ruin some divisions, but that goes through. So what's it going up against, John?
So you're sending all auction drafts through?
Well, okay, fine. So no, I'm voting for only tier 2 auction draft. I don't want to force anyone to do anything. Dave,
why don't you break this tie? Would you like to force everyone to auction draft, or just force one tier 2 to auction draft?
I will actually use my better judgment here. As much as I would like to force everyone to auction draft, I see the betterment of only forcing tier 2. So I will go with that one.
Forcing, like it's a punishment. Only allowing, only enabling, I know, but only offering the privilege.
I definitely see Elon's point in regards, like, because like with a snake draft, you can still kind of like piece together a team if you auto draft it, but with an auction draft, you're effed in the A.
Okay. Now
Okay, so
You're folded in the architecture.
exactly.
You are folded in the architecture, as the old adage goes.
So Dave, a little bit conservative there. Lets the 4 seed get through to take on the winner of the 1 versus 8 seed in the commissioner division. The 1 seed is choose. Okay, so essentially how this works is each player can choose their draft position based on where they finished previously in that tier. I don't know how it takes into account the new people to the tier, but so if you finish first, you get to choose where you draft and so on in a snake draft. So that's the 1st seed. The 8th seed is you ended the season 1 week earlier to try to avoid, drafting people who might get benched later in the season is, I think, the idea there. So it's choosing your draft position based on your previous season ranking versus ending the season 1 week earlier. Alon, let's start with you. Which one do you want to send through to take on tier 2 auction drafts?
Yeah, so I think the first one would be possible because I have a big spreadsheet where I actually rank everyone in the cupful based on how they did in the previous season. And we actually do in the rules specify like who's considered quote unquote like higher if, comparing people who like just got added to a division versus how they did that year in the division versus someone who's been relegated from a higher division into that. I say division, I mean tier. So we probably could set up an order and then let people choose their order. By the way, any of you know, like, does Yahoo give you the ability as the commissioner to set the draft order to how you want it?
I believe so. I believe
Yes.
you can choose, like, as the commissioner of each tier. Again, you probably have to assign person to each tier, but you can manually assign draft order. Correct?
I know it does give you the permission to restart the draft if someone else drafts someone else that you like and you want to draft them.
All right, Dave, mute yourself. So, okay, so that's possible. The other idea, yeah. So last season, what we did was we ended the season at the end, but we had because Yahoo. I mean, in a perfect world, I would like to have 2-week playoff matchups all the time. Yahoo didn't have that ability, but they did have the ability to have the quarterfinals and the semifinals be 1 week, and then the finals be 2 weeks, except it goes all the way to the end of the season. And I guess we decided to go with that just because it did at least give you the chance to have a 2-week matchup. But I get that last week is really annoying. So we would be hurting ourselves just because we'd have to not have a 2-week finals matchup. It would have to just be a 1-week matchup. But I get the reasoning to not include that last week. So I'm going to vote that one. As interesting as that first one is of choosing the draft order, I'm going to go with the huge upset and say that we should end the season. We tried it last year. Before that, Cupful was always ending 1 week early. I think we should go back to just ending 1 week early.
Brian, do you agree? Is there going to be an 8 seed upset here in the commissioner division?
Yeah, there is going to be an upset. I am in Fantrax, we did it. It was an original Kick-Up-Full rule to end the season 1 week earlier. So yeah, you're not penalized if you have a player on a playoff team who's got to rest some boo-boos and you're not thinking on draft day. It's like, oh yeah, maybe I'll draft the guy who's definitely not going to make the playoffs because there's a better chance he's going to play right at the end of the season. Elon, I feel like there was a moment last season where I tweeted, I'm like, all fantasy leagues should be over right now. And you got really mad and it was like the last 5 days of the year and all these like wild random players were sitting and you got really mad at me because you thought I was like defaming the Cupful and putting down our own league. And like, you were right. Like, it was sort of kneecapping our own format, but it's because it was the only option we had on Yahoo. But I think if I had my druthers, and I don't think you do on Yahoo, I would chop off that last week or a half week.
We have the option. It's just then we can't have a 2-week matchup.
Right.
So that's the thing. And like, Brian, you speak your mind. I was mad because it's like people responded to your tweet saying, then why is the Cupful doing it? And like, just kind of like today, how an hour and a half before we recorded this episode, you messaged everyone saying, is this even a good idea for an episode?
No, that's not. Oh my God. That's not what I said.
Anyway, okay, so that's moving forward. John, we got an upset. I saw you had a flabbergasted face. When
I was shocked. I thought that being able to choose your draft position was an interesting idea, and ending the week a season earlier is like, it's okay. But I don't know. I just thought it was you guys chose probably the practical decision here over the flashier one. Brian?
Because I didn't talk about the choosing draft position at all. I feel as though, Elon. Hello?
No, you're good.
What's wrong?
Okay, no, my screen just changed to only show me.
Yeah, I'm messing around. I'm playing around. Don't worry about it.
Well, it's screwed. Okay, I'm gonna start that short bit over then.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Well, just quickly before we move on, because I didn't speak about the choosing draft position thing at all. In my opinion, if you're doing a snake draft, you should be able to win from any position. Like that's part of the challenge. You play the hand you're dealt. I just, it's nice sometimes you can give a winning team some sort of like home field advantage or something in fantasy, but here I don't think it's worth it.
I think it's an interesting idea. I like the idea. I just like the other idea better. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a huge upset, and the number 8 seed ending the season 1 week earlier is taking on the 4 seed, which is an auction draft in tier 2. Brian, since you were just on you're with it. Let's hear what you think about this. Which one should win? 4 versus 8.
This is another one. So where I think both are definitely worth considering. Auction drafting in tier 2 and ending the season 1 week earlier. I'm trying to weigh the pros and cons between ending the season 1 week earlier and like the length of the finals matchup, right? So which one is better? Is it better to have a 2-week matchup where a few of the day's stars might get sat? Or is it better to have a 1 week matchup? So a longer matchup is a little less random, right? But is it a little less random if random guys are being sat? I don't think so. So 1 week matchup is probably as good as a 2 week matchup where players are randomly benched. Yeah, so I feel like this is another one where I could definitely accept both changes, but because I need to stand for auction drafts here, I'll vote auction draft for tier 2.
Okay, so Brian, just so you're aware, basically the consequence of you saying that is, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but I just want to make sure we found through. What we're saying is it's fine to force all of tier 2 to do auction draft, but that means there's going to be some people who earned their way to tier 2 that aren't available on the draft day or like refuse to do auction draft. But that one's not so bad. But if they just can't make it on their draft day, basically we're going to have to tell them, sorry, then you can't be in tier 2. Because I think it's unacceptable.
No, they find a proxy.
Or find a proxy, right. But if we can't, and also Brian, I've done this, right, where we've like all the leagues draft at the same time, and then if all of a sudden like I had to scramble around because one person just didn't show up, someone says I'm gonna make it, we don't know these people, right? Like someone just might not show up for they had an emergency come up.
When John agrees to actually run the auction draft and then he flies out to New York for know-it-alls and is up for 24 hours and then sleeps through his alarm, something like that happening.
Yeah, like stuff happens. And so I feel like someone like John, who knows that he might be a little flaky when it comes to his draft day, maybe would say, okay, I'll just sign me up for a snake draft so I know I'm not going to ruin the league. So just so you're saying, basically what you're saying, Brian, by forcing everyone in tier 2 to do auction draft, which I'm okay with, but you're saying that if you are in tier 2 and you can't do an auction draft or you can't commit to the day, you're out of tier 2. So you're okay with that?
No, I'm not. You find someone to step in for you. And I think you can can you not pre-enter max?
I don't think it'll work in the end. I think I don't think that Yahoo is sophisticated enough, like you said. This isn't like Horizon Zero Dawn where they're able to terraform an entire civilization.
So I guess we're not being utopian here and thinking, okay, like everybody, like the rule is that everyone auction drafts and everyone auction drafts.
I just like the idea that we ask people, and what you said is very smart. I think that if you haven't ever auction drafted before and you make it to tier 1, you're going to be at a disadvantage because that one does auction draft. But I don't know. I don't mind just asking people their opinion, but whatever. So you could vote that. I'm going to vote for the playoff weeks, the playoffs ending a week early, and Dave, you could break the tie. Dave's like, oh, I get to talk.
I am going with the auction draft here.
Oh.
If you, regardless of when you draft, how you draft, there's always going to be people that aren't able to do it for whatever reason, this, that, or the other. So if you're not able to, if it's not your thing, that's not our problem. You shouldn't be drafting this high. Find a proxy. We've had people that have drafted in weddings. I've drafted while moving across the country. And so I don't want to hear it. If you're up this high in the couple, find a way.
Okay, amendment, Dave. You are my proxy now for when I am flying across the country and need you to draft for me.
I will gladly be your proxy for a certain price.
And I'm totally okay with this one going through now.
Okay, so I guess theoretically we could just have like a list of people that are willing to help out.
To proxy.
Maybe we can make it.
There's people upon the droves. If you post it on Keeping Karlsson, there's tons of people that'll be your proxy.
So an
And-
auction draft for tier 2 wins the upper part of the commissioner division, and it is going to go against the winner of the lower part of the commissioner division. The first matchup there is the 3rd seed versus the 6th seed. This one's going to take a little longer to explain, I think. The 3rd seed is just head-to-head categories instead of points. So it's reimagining all how the point structure is. They want categories. This points, you either win or you lose each week. Not this submitter's favorite thing. Submitter, probably not a word. But it's going against the 6th seed, which is essentially, if you're familiar with Survivor, it's a Redemption Island idea. So I'm going to actually read this one because it's like specific. So the 6 teams that miss the playoffs but are in the consolation playoffs still have a chance to win the championship. In the quarterfinals, if one of the consolation teams has the most total points of all the teams playing that week, they get to advance to the semifinals. Then, if in the semifinals they have more total points than all 4 actual semifinalists, they get to go to the finals, which becomes a fatal 3-way matchup for the championship. So it is that, which I'm not going to repeat, versus head-to-head categories against categories instead of points. So Alon, let's which one do you like better of these two?
Okay, Brian's putting his hand up. Brian, I think
Brian.
I get it though. If it's okay for me to just elaborate.
Yeah.
I think I understand. Basically, what we're saying is if you miss the playoffs, but you're still, it's like the next 6 teams. So we have that the top 6 make the playoffs, and then the next 6 are in another bracket just to still play each other. So we're saying those teams that are still alive. So there's 14 teams overall. So 2 teams are out. Then we're saying the 6 teams that didn't make the playoffs will basically, the only one of them could still win the championship, but what they'll have to do is have the most points in each of the next 3 weeks over every single other team. So if even one other team that's around of all the active teams has more points than them, they're out. But if they could win 3 weeks in a row ahead of every single other person that was in the playoffs, then they actually make it to the end and have still a chance to win. So it's a pretty radical idea. I definitely like it though.
Real
better.
quick, switch your camera so that you can see you talking.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so it's a pretty radical idea. But I think it could be fun. I think we could probably make that work in Yahoo just by manually keeping track of checking, in each playoff matchup, if the person who was eliminated got more points than everyone else, then they could move forward and we'll just sort of keep track of it that way. The other one, we did categories, then we switched to points. I'm not ready to switch back to categories. I want to keep going on the points train. We've only done it 1 year. So I'm going to vote for the radical
Redemption Island.
I'm going to vote for Redemption Island.
Dave, by the way, is just probably Dave is the largest advocate for categories over points, and I'm not going to give him the floor to talk about it. In his mind, it's checkers versus chess. There you go. That's how Dave feels about it, and I feel differently. I think there are different strategic elements to both, but we appreciate the ones in points, and I enjoyed playing points last season. I guess the argument for categories is there's a bit more managerial control about, what your strategy is going into a week. It's not just get the most points. It's you look at your squad, you look at your opponents, which categories can you win, which categories are going to be in contention, what should you target, what do you have no chance in, so what should you punt for the week? So I know and appreciate those decisions, but I think for the purposes of the KKUPFL being like a huge 200 plus person, we might even, I wonder if we'll get to 300 this year. I don't think so, but we might get close. Just a league of that size and scale, I think points makes the most sense, especially because you get to compare across divisions too, right? It's a lot more linear comparison. So if you're in tier 4, and last year we had Marcus making spreadsheets of all teams in the KKUPFL and their scoring. And of course, it's different depending on what division you're in and how competitive it is, but you can still sort of get a baseline estimate when everybody essentially across every single division has the same goal. So I'm happy to keep points in the running, and I like the Redemption Island idea a lot. Elon, can I just ask you, was it yours?
John, I think our decision was to not reveal until something gets
We'll
eliminated.
reveal at the end. It could
Okay.
be me too, Brian. You never know.
Well, if it was Survivor inspired, my hunch is that it's Elon's. I actually I want to take it further. I think that maybe it's not a Redemption Island thing. Maybe this is another spin on it. But every fantasy playoffs should just be a free for all. Forget weekly matchups. It's frustrating that you can have the top ranked team and then lose a 1 week matchup and it's over, right? And I know that randomness is part of it. And on one hand, it doesn't make sense to change the matchup mechanic that you've been playing all regular. I'm arguing against myself here. But
let's just set it and forget it after the draft. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that would be a roto league. So I don't think you should do it right. But I think if you earn your way into the playoffs, then it's just straight up, or at least when it gets to the final four, fatal 4-way, 2 weeks. That's how you get your 2 week matchup. That's how you get your 2 weeks of points. And the best team over those 2 weeks wins. I love it. I love that whole concept. I know
next
that's not
year,
what you're suggesting,
when we do the
Elon.
bracket next year, you've got to submit that one. That's a good one.
Oh man, I want it this year.
Well, okay, I think that we already have one suggestion.
Yeah. So Redemption Island
good
is
idea.
through. I think it's I'm happy you went through, although I do like from somebody who lost 3 weeks in a row by less than a point in this managing categories can get you through those humps.
But stream better.
I know. Trust me. Anyway, so Redemption Island moves through. It's going against the winner of the 2 versus 7 matchup. These are similar in what they're trying to achieve, and I'm curious to see which one you think is best in achieving that thing. The 2 seed is smaller rosters as the tiers get lower, and the 7 seed is less teams as the tiers get lower. It's essentially trying to get it to be more competitive on the waiver wire with smaller rosters or less teams as the tiers go down. So let's start with you, Elon. Which one do you prefer? The 2 seed, which is smaller rosters, or the 7 seed, which is less teams?
So basically you're saying that in the lower divisions, when you first join the KKUPFL, you're in a shallower league, either by smaller rosters or fewer competitors. And then as you climb up, you get to more and more deep leagues. That's it. It's kind of interesting. So basically different rules. We'll have to keep track of different rules as you move through, but maybe that's kind of fun that then people get different experiences as they work their way through the KKUPFL. The problem is if I want to make a change, if we decide to change something year in, year out, then things could really bounce around for people. But okay, so new people who join. Okay, but it was specifically for this decision. Anyways, we're not even deciding if this is a good idea because either one is the same idea. Just one is basically fewer teams versus smaller rosters. I think I would go with fewer teams. Then we could just have more divisions. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to like either of these enough to make it through over Redemption Island, but give me the fewer teams, more divisions, I guess.
What do you think, Brian?
Well, so Elon, if there are more divisions.
Sorry, not more divisions. Yeah. So basically the bottom tier, if there was tier 5, and if now there was fewer teams in each division is a league, right? We should make that clear. Each division in a tier.
And it's a pyramid structure, right? So tier 1 has 1 division, has 1 league. Tier 2 has 2 leagues. Tier 3 has 3 leagues.
Yeah, exactly. And then we have it all set up where depending where you rank, you could climb up to a different tier. Hopefully that's clear to people. And so basically what this suggestion is that if you're in let's say the bottom tier, then you're not in 14 team leagues, you're in 12 team leagues. So basically there's going to be more divisions. With smaller, I don't know. It sounds kind of confusing, so I don't really care because I don't really.
The easier one for you would be smaller rosters because you keep the amount of teams the same. You just shrink the roster size.
Yeah. If there were, I mean, I don't want to spend too long because I don't like any of these. I don't think we should be changing the rules for people in the lower tiers. So fewer teams would be a practical problem because if the pyramid has a really wide floor, we would just have to decrease the number of people who could play in the lower tier period if we wanted to keep our pyramid structure and all our promotion systems set up the way they are. So I'm going to go with smaller rosters, but I hate it. So
do you want to change yours, Alon, or should we go to Dave for the tiebreaker?
Oh, actually, sorry. I'm going to stay with Elon.
Oh,
Actually.
Oh, so you want less teams?
Yeah, just in the
Doesn't
purpose
matter.
of moving it forward. Like I
Okay.
think we're gonna knock it out anyway. It's against Redemption Island, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, Redemption
And that's
Island.
happening
Boom.
right now then. So the 7 seed, less teams in the lower tiers, is taking on the 6 seed Redemption Island. Let's see. Brian, go ahead.
Redemption Island, for sure. I love the idea that a team, by the way, if Redemption Island existed last year, I'm pretty sure I would have won the championship.
Oh.
Now
so-
we know why you like this one so much.
So let me just recap. I'm voting Redemption Island too, just to make sure we got this right. So it's basically if you're one of the 6 teams that didn't make the playoffs, like so ranked 7 through 12, then in the first quarter, right now the way the quarterfinals work is there's the top 2 teams have a bye, and then the next 4 teams play each other in the first round of the playoffs. So basically those matchups will still happen as they go, but then also the other people will, have their weeks. And then if one of the people of those bottom 6 have a higher total number of fantasy points than all 4 teams that were participating, it's basically the 2 winners of the quarterfinals, then that person moves on to the semifinals. Then there's another 4 teams playing. And if that team has more, if one of these loser teams got more points than all 4 of those people, then they move on to the finals where it's a fatal
If the
three-way.
consolation team has the most points of everybody 2 weeks in a row after losing in their first round, they get to take on the other 2 teams that made it to the championship.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's fun. Okay, so move that forward.
Okay.
What's it going against now?
So it will, in the championship, it's going to go against Auction Draft in tier 2. We'll come back around to that one. Do we want to do the championship here and then work our way backwards, or do you want to go back to the goalie division and do the championships in the order we've done these divisions?
I think we're already here.
Okay.
Let's do it. So basically, but we're in the final 8. That's very exciting. We're at almost 2.5 hours
In the
in.
Elite 8.
What do you think, guys, overall? Very quick, Brian, are you happy with how things have gone so far? Do you think we have some fun ideas here in the final 8? I really like these suggestions we've gotten.
I'm very excited, and I think John, great bracket setup so that we didn't have to opt too many of the best ones to get here. But this is really fruitful. I'm really excited about all these changes. Potentially.
Let me review the Elite 8 for you. How about that?
Go for it.
Okay, so in the goalie category, we've got wins are worth more versus 1 to 2 more points for a shutout. In the skater division, we've got minus 0.25 points for PIMS versus removing a bench slot. In the transactions tier, we've got free waiver for IR and then limiting to 3 max waiver ads per week, going against the ability to cancel a trade within 24 hours. And in the commissioner division, we've got Redemption Island going against Auction Draft tier 2 drafting.
Okay, this is exciting. All right.
Is it too hot to say we could accept all 8 of these?
I mean, we could, but Brian, you and I will have separate conversations after to discuss anything else. But one of them is going to get a guaranteed, road to victory right here and get into the KKUPFL. Dave is very worried that it's going to be this thing with the injured players, then give you an extra acquisition. I saw him shaking his head there, but everything else I think we're all pretty good with. So let's move forward. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's start with the Commissioner Division Championship. The 6th seed Redemption Island going against the 4th seed Auction drafting for Tier 2. Elon, take it away. Which one do you want to come out of the Commissioner Division?
Sorry, just kidding. Redemption Island.
Okay, and I'm gonna go Auction draft for Tier 2. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to leave this in the hands of Dave.
Okay, Dave, since we haven't heard a lot from you on the Commissioner Division, let's hear your thought process on breaking this tie. The 6th seed Redemption Island going against the 4th seed Auction draft, mandatory for all Tier 2 teams.
I hate it on the show. I hate it in regards to the fantasy aspect. I'm going Auction draft in Tier 2.
Oh, so sad. You hate Redemption Island on Survivor? I do too, actually.
Yeah, I hate it on Survivor.
It had a good run. I think it's an interesting idea to keep teams incentivized to still be trying, even if they miss the playoffs. It'll make it more fun for people. It's still pretty hard to achieve that goal of making it to the finals because you have to literally be better than everybody. So I think it would have been fun. And also,
the last winner was such a cheap win. You can't deny that.
True. Okay, well,
Not
we're gonna
in
have
terms of the
auction
couple,
draft.
obviously. I mean, in
Oh,
terms
you mean in Survivor? I was
Yeah.
like, I was,
Oh.
yeah, I agree. I was really trying to decipher that.
I was like, Dave's telling everyone that his own win was cheap.
Right. Anyway, so the winner of the commissioner division is auction draft for tier 2. It's going against the winner from the transaction division, which will be either free waiver wire pickups for injured players and limiting the max waiver ads to 3 per week, going against the ability to cancel a trade within 24 hours. So let's go see which one it's going to take on. Let's start with you, Brian. Which one do you want to see come out of the transactions division? The IR free waivers or the ability to cancel a trade?
Ability to cancel a trade. I like the free IR move. I think the administration and like this is where, these are all good ideas. So maybe I'm going to start considering in a more pragmatic way. The administration end of that would be difficult. And like I could totally see like somebody, after morning skate being reported that Joe Thornton has the flu and is questionable for tonight. Yahoo quickly gives him IR status. You move him to IR, you make a move, and then it's like, oh, Joe Thornton's actually playing tonight. And then like maybe you get a free move out of it. Maybe you keep him in your IR because you like the other player better, but you added that guy for free. So I don't know. I just see difficult administration and potential for it to not exactly work in the spirit it's intended. So I like canceling within 24 hours. We had a suggestion in the chat from Matthew about the canceling within 24 hours, that it can only be canceled for another trade. Like you can't just like get cold feet and be like, nah, I'm out. Like I'm actually not going to trade, but you can only, I don't know if it's too late. It's probably too late to insert that into the conversation, but it's something that I would insert into the conversation if I could. Either way, canceling a trade within 24 hours for me moves forward.
Yeah, I think I would allow it to be inserted in the conversation if we both agreed at this point, but I don't really agree because I still think that doesn't help us with the fact if it's a crazy bamboozle trade that I just want off the books without you and I having to do extra work. So I'm okay to just like if someone traded like a star for a dud and everyone told that person he's an idiot or she's an idiot, then just let them cancel it. By the way, I think that'll be okay because I feel like people are pretty strong-willed and proud of themselves, right? Like if someone like, let's say I made a trade that was like, then everyone told me, Elon, you got totally ripped off. That was a really dumb trade. I would have my pride on the line. Like I wouldn't want to be like, okay, fine, you're right, I cancel it. Like, it's kind of, you have to eat some humble pie and being like messaging. We could even make it like an embarrassing thing or, well, I don't want to make it too embarrassing, but you have to message Elon or Elon, that's me, Brian or I, and be like, hey guys, actually, I think my trade wasn't a good idea. So can you please cancel it based on, so I feel like it's not as if I think it's going to happen too often, but it just allows I think it will usually only happen if they get a better counter offer, which I think is fun. So Brian, I'll agree with you. Let's move that forward, see how far it goes.
So with as in it can only be done for another trade?
No, not that thing.
Oh,
just
okay,
the original.
Okay.
We're moving the original second seed out of the transaction division. Small upset. The ability to cancel a trade within 24 hours will take on auction drafting in tier 2. But first, let's go over to the skater and goalie divisions. We'll start with the goalies. We have the 4 seed wins worth more taking on the second seed, 1 to 2 more points for shutouts. So do we want shutouts to be worth a little bit more or wins to be worth a little bit more? Let's start with you, Elon. Which one would you like to push through?
By the way, before I say my answer, we didn't give credit to the person who came up with that great Redemption Island idea.
Yes, it was Elon. He came up with that idea.
If you liked it, message, comment in the Facebook for any of these ideas that got kicked off. That if you think they were good, we could start a thread in the Facebook group and discuss this, or tweet at us at Keeping Karlsson, and we could still decide if we.
Yeah, we can post the final bracket, and then people can use that as a thread on Facebook to discuss.
Yeah, we'll definitely tweet it out.
Whose was Redemption Island is out, so we're not talking about it. Who had the idea that got eliminated last in the transaction division?
The free waiver for I think that was also Elon, but we added it to one of you. We basically combined Brian and Elon into one for that one.
Brian, is this okay? So maybe it's good that we've kicked out all the ones that are just our ideas, because maybe that people would be annoyed if it's just our ideas in the end that go through.
It's still potentially the case, but we'll see how that all works out. Back to goalies though, wins or shutouts. Which one would you guys like to reward with a few more points?
Shutouts. I'm voting shutouts. I think we've already given our reasonings, right? Like, I don't think wins are necessarily something that's like shows how good the goalie is. We're already giving 2 points for a win. Dostatochna, it's enough. But shutouts are fun and they're rare enough. I don't think it's going to have a huge impact, but it makes it more fun. So I'm going shutouts. But
Brian, do you agree? Shutouts?
I think it's really even between these two. I don't. Like, I think if you add value to wins, you're adding more value, right, to the goalies on the best teams, which, like, I think is probably a good thing. If you're adding more value to shutouts, you're saying, in a random week, you're going to get, like, a potential bonus. And, like, you can cheer for wins the same way you cheer for shutouts.
I just think it goes against the whole reason why we decided to not weigh wins as much compared to saves and goals against, making it more about goalie performance versus wins. So
yeah.
Plus, also, if we add value to wins, they happen so often that we might have to then think of like rebalancing skaters. I feel like because maybe now we're going to add too much value to goalies overall, so we're going to have to do a lot. I think shutouts is safe.
I'm convinced. I think I like the skater goalie balance. I like the fact that you can win by running goalies or not running goalies. Like, I owned 5 at one point last season. And it was working for me. I actually played Jeff one week who had 0. And I think I won the week, but like it was close and we had completely opposite strategies and I wouldn't want to mess with that too much. So yeah, for that reason, I'll go with the lesser impact one of shutouts.
Wow, I'm shocked. Okay, so shutouts moving through to take on the yet to be determined champion of the skater division. And we'll move straight to that. The 4th seed -1 bench slot is taking on the 7th seed -1/4 point for penalty minutes. So let's start with you, Brian. Which one of those would you like to see take on 1 to 2 more points for a shutout for the, I guess we'll call it the player category conference?
So I'm just like, can we just remind, so -1 bench plus 1 util means that
that did not go through. So it's just -1 bench slot. So you're just reducing the roster size by 1.
Okay. Like, I swear I'm a flexible guy. I can warm to the penalty minutes idea. Like, if it happens, it happens. But I am going to vote against it. I'm going to go take away a bench slot. This is hard because if you take away a bench slot, you've less credit for the guys you make sure to keep on your team.
It's a shallower league.
Yeah. So between a rock and a hard place here. Oh my gosh. I'm going to vote for. Damn, Elon, you go first.
Okay.
You vote and you make a case for what you're voting for.
I think that losing a bench spot is interesting, but I think we've said a lot of the reasons for it or not for it, and I think it could be something that we could consider. I don't think it's a decision I want to make right now on the show. I think I'd want to look more into the total impact of how that would affect a lot of things. I like the idea of having a shallower league. I think it is something to consider. I don't know if taking away a bench spot is the better way versus taking away a utility spot, or I don't know. There's a lot to it. It's a good idea.
It's one against those because those were options.
Yeah, that's true. I think I like the penalty minutes one. Honestly, Brian, I'm just like, for me, I think it's pretty low impact and it gets me to pay attention to another stat, which people ask us about. I think people care about it. Some people find it interesting, and I think it would be fun watching hockey because to me, it all kind of comes down, all of fantasy. Like, obviously winning is the best, but a big part of fantasy for me is just watching a hockey game and being either happy or sad as things happen and like making the watching of the games more enjoyable. So to me, like, if my player takes a penalty and I could be mad at my player, that feels like it's as if I'm like cheering, let's say if I'm a Sens fan and I'm hoping for the Sens to win and then one of their players takes a penalty, I'm like, ugh, come on, Zach Smith. Like, get your head in the game. Stop taking these bad penalties. And so I feel like it'll be fun to have that same feeling for my fantasy team. So I'm going penalty minutes. But if you want to go the other way, I'm fine. And I won't push penalty minutes any further than this if Dave pushes it through. But you're really against it.
I think I am going to go with penalty minutes just because it is predictable, not on a week-by-week basis, but the same way that save percentage is. Or can be. It might even be more predictable than save percentage over a full season, the number of penalty minutes the player takes. This is a way that I could make a choice between 2 guys I'm really close on, but one of them averages 40 fewer penalty minutes a year. it's something I can use to help value one player over another rather than just like eliminating the player spot altogether. So I am going to go with I'm joining you for penalty minutes.
Interesting.
Dave,
Dave,
what would you have said?
I was going to ask Dave that as well. I haven't heard his beautiful voice for a while.
His eyes are closing.
No, just my hat is going down. I would have won penalty minutes for sure. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
By the way, in the chat, some interesting comments, right? Alex is saying negative penalty minutes is interesting, but I could see it losing its novelty and being annoying, and not the guy saying predictable and relatively negligible. Like, I kind of feel like it should be there. Like, penalty minutes are bad, and if our goal is to build a roster of people that are helping the real teams, then it makes sense to take away a point for penalty minutes. I've never been for it for categories leagues, because again, we've already talked about how they're like kind of too random and they could like change week to week. But I think for a points league where you just give it a little ding, little like, hey, slap on the wrist. You took a penalty. It's not good. Then obviously, except for those 17 penalty minute games, and that'll just be kind of a funny thing to have people complain about on the Facebook group, being like, "Oh my God, Marchand, you're killing me." But that's the risk. You get a lot of benefits from having him on your team. So what's the harm of getting a little hurt every once in a while? So okay, so what's that taking on, John?
So just as an aside, you each have one suggestion of yours left in the final four, which is pretty funny. Anyway, so that is the penalty minutes adjustment is taking on the shutouts adjustment. Which one do you want to push through to the finals?
Interesting. By the way, John, this is kind of your fault, right? Like, Brian and I didn't even make suggestions at first, and you messaged us saying, hey, it'll be fun if you guys each come up with suggestions. And I mean, like, what did you think was going to happen? We're the ones deciding here.
Yeah. I thought, though, that it was still 2 against 1 no matter what. And I asked you guys also to, like, suggest stuff that you might not even, like, want to push through yourself just for fun to fill out the bracket. The ones that came through is what I'm shocked about, actually. I thought there was some bigger, more like, anyway, I just thought there were some like different ones that would be pushed through. From my seeding, you can tell the 7th seed came out of the skater division, which was the weakest division in my opinion. But yeah, no, I'm actually a little bit interested in how this all played out, and will continue to.
It's fascinating. So we'll find out who was. Should we get you to tell us who gave the other eliminated ones in the past round?
Yeah, I mean, we can. I'll just give credit to everyone who made submissions at the end of this. It was a handful of people, and everyone had something that you guys liked in here, even if they didn't make it all the way through. So at the end, I'll give a little thanks to everyone who submitted.
That's so nice.
What a great guy. Okay, so what are we doing here? We're doing negative for penalty minutes versus positive for shutouts. I'll be honest, I'm the one who suggested positive for shutouts, which was like not to me a very interesting one, something I think I want to do anyways, I think no one said an objection. I feel like it'd just be more fun, but I also think it's kind of a boring winner for this bracket. So for that reason, the penalty minutes one interests me more as like an actual significant change, and also something that I didn't suggest. So I'm going to vote penalty minutes. But Brian, again, I'm ready to not if you change your mind. But I think it's growing on me more the more we talk about it. A little negative for a little penalty minutes, and I learn about penalty minutes.
It's growing on me a little bit too, but I'm still going to go. I would much rather cheer for, like, if I'm like thinking about watching a game on a Sunday or any day of the week and my players are involved, I'd much rather cheer for my goalie and add a little value to goalies. Like, we saw teams running without goalies, period, last year. And so, and that actually made for some weird goalie markets in a couple divisions, which again, like, I think it all balanced out and worked out perfectly. But maybe this is another little consideration of rebalancing their value and making the upside higher. And I'd rather cheer for a goalie to get a shutout than a player to not take a penalty. So I'm gonna go with goalies. So this is gonna come down to Dave deciding. Like, I'm gonna go with extra value to shutouts. So Dave is going to decide which one goes to the big dance.
This is actually one of the first ones, or a rare one, where I'm not sure where Dave's going to go with this. I could see him going either way. So Dave, where's it going to go?
I mean, really, it should have went towards just goalie wins in general. I was upset that lost, but I will side towards goalie shutouts.
Oh,
That is very interesting. So Elon and Dave both voted against their suggestions in the quarterfinals, semifinals.
semifinals or quarter.
Yeah, leading to the winner coming out as the second seed from the goalie division, 1 to 2 more points for shutout. Do you guys want to expand on that and say like how many points you're leaning to adding to the shutouts before it goes against whatever it's going to go against in the final?
So first off, Adam in the chat is pointing out, like, all of a sudden I'm favoring the less predictable category. Like, if you want to predict shutouts or PIMs are probably more predictable over 82 games, and week to week probably even. So, like, yeah, you're right. Bit of hypocrisy here. For some reason, it's just how I'm feeling. It's my negative PIM bias. So right now we offer 2 points for win and 1 point for a shutout. I would, I'd throw that. I'd double that number. I'd put it to 2 points for a shutout.
Okay.
Shutout worth 2 wins. What do you think, Elon?
No, I think we should do that. I just think it's kind of boring. Like the PIMS thing actually interested me. I thought that would be a fun new change to the couple. This to me is like not even a rule change. It's like the smallest little tweak,
right?
As opposed to adding. So I think you made a mistake here. I think the PIMS thing would have been fun maybe next year. So okay.
So I thought the PIMS would be fun.
It.
Yeah, I look. The thing I thought needed most balancing coming out of last season was goalie value. So I'm happy that we got a goalie category tweak coming out of the kind of category tweak side of the bracket, right? I kind of agree with Dave that win, I think there maybe could be a larger, more predictable increase in value for goalies that could have come out of this. But if anything, I'm happy that the goalies are being rebalanced in some small way if this one ends up winning.
Okay, and this one was pretty vague. So maybe, Brian, afterwards we could like run some spreadsheets, see how different weightings would have affected rankings last year. Maybe we'll make it different than 2 points for shutout. But basically, if this makes it to the end, it'll be
even if you just pump up wins by like 0.3 or something,
Wins is out, dude. This is
I'm just saying. we're tossing out ideas at loss. I'm just saying.
I agree that I'm with you, Elon. Like, I almost went PIMS just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
I'm still open to it. I think it would make a really exciting.
Is it too late? Is it too late to change your mind?
It's too late.
Too late. All right, let's go to the next
shutouts. We're going to go over to the transactional division versus the commissioner division. These are the kind of the bigger ideas, bigger changes versus tweaks. So let's see what comes out of this one. The second seed from the transaction division, the ability to cancel a trade within 24 hours, is taking on the 4th seed from the commissioner division, auction drafting for tier 2. Alon, you want to start this time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm keeping my opinion the same, that I like the idea of having the ability to cancel a trade if you made it within 24 hours, because I think then that might decrease the number of terrible trades. And I think we can also come up with some fun ways to embarrass the person. Like there was a suggestion here in the chat room of like they have to change their team name to Cancel McCancelface or something for a week if they did that. So that was a really funny idea. So and I don't like the idea of forcing people to auction draft if they don't want to. Like we have a form, we let people choose what they want. I don't know why we need to, but I get your reasoning, because you just want to, because then some people might be forced not to auction if they want to, just because not enough people were willing. I'm afraid of that idea. I'd be willing to, I guess, try my best to make it work as the coordinator of all these drafts and figure out a way that everyone will have a proxy in place or something. I'm scared, but so I'm not voting for that, but I'm starting to accept the fact that it might make it through, but I'm going with the cancel trade ability.
I think the cancel trade is going to be a little difficult to administer as well. I think you might also find...
No, they just message me, Brian. They'll just message and be like, hey, I want to cancel my trade I just made.
Okay, so sure.
You can even put somebody in charge of each tier, each league within each tier to be that person.
I guess that would be it. I think you also will run into some people who know about the rule and some people who, despite our best efforts, don't know about the rule. Like, it's a weird one. It's obscure. So I think that's a danger. That said, I think people in tier 2 should auction draft, but perhaps it should be their choice. Like, I don't want to force anyone to do what they don't want to do, except people snake drafting might be doing what they don't want to do. So, like, it's really hard. I think auction draft should be default.
I know this isn't up to me, but I have to interject here real quick.
Yeah, get in there.
You're like, hey, you and Elon both are like, we don't want to force people to auction draft. You don't have to force people to accept a trade. That's what you don't have to force them to do. But then all of a sudden when they do it, and then everyone starts ragging on them, and then they're like, oh, maybe now I don't want to do it. When maybe someone was orchestrating this trade for 2 weeks. Oh, goodness gracious.
I mean, maybe there's a way.
Being about to be so mad about it makes me want to make him madder. So like that might be what tips the scales here. Like I think everyone in the second tier should auction draft. I will personally contact them to encourage them to do it. And I think like if the majority of people in tier 2 want to auction draft, they should auction draft. Because like we also considered one division, like there's 2 leagues in tier 2, right? So like the people who want to auction draft, if there's enough to fill a league, would all be in their division, and the people who snake draft will be in another. But like you're almost self-selecting into the more competitive division if that's the way. I feel like it should be one, like both divisions or neither division. It's a bit of a different, except I would still like prefer to auction draft against tougher competition.
Yeah, honestly, like I just feel this is like now we messed up. Sorry about that. Almost sorry. Like we should have done with Redemption Island. I don't like either of these now moving forward. I feel like it's not even a fun. Like most of the people listening aren't going to be in tier 2. Now they've listened to this whole episode just for the rule change to be something that only affects tier 2. I don't like that. Maybe the trade canceling is a little crazy. I don't know.
Actually, I don't know why you're saying that. I'm voting for cancel trade.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So why don't you like it all of a sudden?
I mean, I get Dave makes good points. I get it, but also, and I know it's going to piss people off, but I'm hoping it won't happen too often. I just want there to be even trades. I just feel like leagues could get ruined when lopsided trades happen. So I just want to try to come up with ways to not do it. Let's see if this one makes it.
I think the odds of somebody canceling a trade because people are making fun of them, like they know why they're making that trade, especially in a competitive league. I just don't think that that's a big enough worry to take away the upside.
Yeah, I'm going to say even me, if this was available to me, I might have used it even when I might have won a trade or it might have been even. Like I just get cold feet really easily, and I might just want to like reset it to the way things were. So like I feel like that's what I wouldn't want to happen. People just being like, oh, I'm slightly uncomfortable with this 12 hours later.
Which we can assess at the end of one season and see if that's what happened more, right?
Yeah.
Like
I like the idea of trying it out.
Yeah.
Which to me would be motivation to just not ever even negotiate in the first place.
Or just try to make fair trades.
Right.
Like it's fair to negotiate, but if you're thinking in your head, I think I could really rip this person off, then like I don't want you to be negotiating trades.
No one ever wants to make a fair trade. Everyone always wants to get the better deal.
And there's no trade, and then there's no trade to be made. Like if you negotiate a trade, it's going to be one that someone thinks they're winning.
Like is the NHL better off because Peter Chiarelli was a GM for a while and he ruined the Oilers? Like it's no fun now.
30 other teams are.
So the number 2 seed came out of the transactions division, and it's going to take on the number 2 seed from the goaltending division. So it may not even make it through. So let's see which one, Brian, let's start with you. Would you rather have the ability to cancel a trade within 24 hours or 1 to 2 more points for a shutout? This is the final, whichever one you guys choose is applied automatically.
Guys, we messed up so bad.
Yeah.
I
didn't want to say it, but
it should have been Pims versus Redemption Island here. And now we have like
it should be.
But whatever. Okay, so
that's not what happened, Elon. You didn't get to make all 3 votes.
I can swap out, like, except John won't let us. I can swap out Pims for shutout.
No, we
can't.
Wait,
you want to cancel your trade now that you've already made it?
I'm gonna go. Like, I hated cancel trades within 24 hours the first time I read it, but when I realized just how it could be employed, I think it would be a really fun thing to try out. I think like there will be some people who are rankled by it along the way. I think it won't be perfect. I think it'll leave probably a couple people feeling bad, but I think it's like it's the sort of change we're looking for something fun. We're looking for something novel. We're looking for something that creates a little more excitement and that adds a mechanic that I've wanted to be in a fantasy hockey league for like at least 3 years now. So it ticks all those boxes for me. And that's why I think it's a worthy champ of this bracket. So I'm voting cancel trades within 24 hours.
Damn. Okay, so now I have to make a decision. Both of these were my suggestions. So now it's like also people who participated.
I just want to say, I think if we're talking about the submissions from the patrons, the removing a bench slot made it the furthest, and that's Brandon. So he has gotten the furthest in this. So I just want to throw that out there. Don't feel guilty about what we're picking or whatever. These are all good ideas, but Brandon's for the listeners made it the furthest through this. Now we're going with two of Elon's, and let's see which one makes it into the winner's circle.
Okay, this is fun. This has been a great time. Thanks everyone for suggesting your things. We should be deciding between Pims and Redemption Island right now.
Who was Pims? Do we know who Pims was?
That was Dave.
That was
okay.
It's a good idea. That would have been fun. Negative Pims. You know what? I hope people have enjoyed listening to it, but it's going to be a bit of a. Well, actually, let's let Dave decide. I think I don't. I'm having a little bit of cold feet.
We're gonna let Dave decide.
Which basically, and I know Dave. Actually, it's basically me deciding because I know that Dave is going to vote against the cancel trades, right? So it's basically just me deciding.
So this is, and like, listen, shutouts is good. Like, it's kind of boring. It's probably going to happen no matter what. So I think right now you're voting in cancel trades. It's either going to happen. You're deciding right now that this is going to be a feature of the KKUPFL in 2019-20, or you're deciding that it is not. Because like, even if cancel trades wins, I think we're still going to do the shutout thing.
You're still going to tweak the goaltending,
or tweak goaltending somehow. Right. So Elon, this is basically comes down to an in or out. Are we going to have a really boring winner? Are you gonna have, like the winner of this like elaborate 3-hour episode with so many creative suggestions in the winner's box? It's going to say 1 to 2 more points for a shutout, or is it going to say be something exciting and worth it, like cancel trades within 24 hours?
That was a very good pitch, Brian. I don't know if it'll work, but it was a very good pitch.
I can tell you don't want to do it.
John, what would you do?
John, I mean, look, assuming that the goaltending balance tweak is going to happen, I look at that as more of a tweak, whereas I look at this more of an experiment, right? And so I like the idea of a 1-year experiment and see how it works. I don't think it's going to break it, right? I think it's going to be fun. And I like making Dave upset.
Elon's nervous about change. He's
probably nervous about implementation.
Ask him about his apartment. Ask him about his dog. Like, he just like everything. He just wants it to stay the same.
Okay, I know this is probably getting annoying for people. So I'm not worried about implementation. First of all, it's very easy. They message me. They say they want to cancel the trade. I'm like, done, because it's easy to do. So that's not a problem. I'm a little worried about backlash of people who made trades and then their trade got canceled. I would love to maybe tweak it a little bit to, I don't know. Can we have a tweak where like, if Brian and I, as the commissioners, think that it is fair enough that they can't cancel it, can we maybe have like a commissioner final say? But then it's basically us. No, that's too crazy. All right, put it through. Hang
on. Before you even say it, like, I'm going to pretend I didn't hear it. What if we make what if we put it out there? Like, this is it needs to be ratified by the KKUPFL membership. Like, this is what won the bracket. If it's largely unpopular, it's gone.
Okay. I like that. I mean, probably listeners might be like, why didn't you guys, like, why did I listen to all this and I didn't even get a decision in the end? But I'm for it. Okay. I'm voting for because we promised, Brian, we got to stick with our promises.
We did promise. You're right.
Let's do it. Let's see how it goes. Maybe let's even say we could, whatever. We still have the power at the end of the day. It's our league. If this rule is like universally hated, let's say like 3 months into the season, we could think about tweaking it during the season. Normally we don't like to do that.
Like, I feel like if it's going to be universally hated, the people who were dedicated enough to listen this long will and have heard our arguments start to finish are going to weigh in, and we make the call before the season starts.
Okay, so let's do it. Also, the shutouts thing is a boring thing. It doesn't make a difference. This is actually a difference maker. So sure, the new rule, the thing that's going to win the whole thing. I'm agreeing with you, Brian. Dave's probably so mad right now, but I think it's worthwhile. If you make a trade, you have 24 hours where everyone could rag on you, tell you you're dumb, hopefully even maybe give you a better offer to come up with a more fair trade. And it'll be really fun to see how this ends up getting utilized. So yeah, we're going to give people the ability to cancel their trade once they have accepted it for 24 hours.
So I'm going to give you guys one more option here. And
Oh,
this
boy.
was one that I couldn't fit into the bracket, but I'd like to throw at you if you would like to have it. It's Redemption Island. So an actual listener submitted that every tier has a tier 1 player in it. So the tier 1 players have to manage 2 teams, but in every tier they're taking on one person who has made its way up to the elite of the KKUPFL. So if you would like that to be instead of the ability to cancel a trade within 24 hours.
No.
No, I
Okay.
don't like it. If anything, I thought you were going to say like,
Redemption
let's
Island.
have a redemption island for this bracket and like one
That would be great.
exited feature we can bring back to battle, cancel 24 hours. And that would be probably Redemption Island.
Yeah. I liked the Redemption Island, but Brian and Dave both voted against it for auction drafting in tier 2. So no ability to retake that trade.
I warned against it. All right, so that's the new rule.
Yep.
It'll be really fun to see how it goes. Thanks to everyone for listening through this show.
And just a real quick thank you to everyone who submitted, including Jean-Marc, Brandon, Sean, Murphy, Ryan Krieg, Kyle, Matt, Ben Burnett. You guys had some really great submissions. I tried to tweak it so that that Alon, Ryan, and Dave were going against themselves at a lot of points, but so thank you for submitting. Keep submitting. They were really great suggestions. But yeah, the ability to cancel trade within 24 hours. The Elon rule going in this season. I don't even know if he's like 100% wanting it to be called that.
I'm very nervous now, but yeah, I guess that is the Elon rule. So I'll take all the heat. All right, so thanks, John. Dave, how are you doing over there? You're. Oh wait, Dave's actually not even in the.
Yeah, he got kicked.
Dave, how you doing? You're back in now. You still there? Oh, Dave's gone. Dave's so mad that he's gone. So I think he's coming back now. But oh yeah, Dave, there you are. Dave, what do you think? How mad are you?
Wait, what one?
The ability to cancel a trade within 24 hours is the new rule this year.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Like, why would you even engage? Like, I've like negotiated with people for like 3 weeks, and then like
they should be as invested as you in the deal, so long as it's fair.
Also, you should have been able to foresee what was going to happen and vote through Redemption Island so that it could beat this one. But
especially when it's like someone against like myself, like who's a little bit more of like a public figure, I guess, or like, and like they're like no matter what the trade is, they're gonna like be like, no, that's a ripoff. No matter what, like vote against it.
Hey,
now nobody's voting.
Also, by the way, Dave, what part of your negotiation can be no one's stopping you from saying, hey, man, by the way, let's make an agreement. Neither of us are backing out of this trade. Right. Like, you could just agree to that.
Who would agree to that? That's like,
I will never like deal with you. Like, you can use that leverage.
Yeah, you can say, if you back out of it, I'm not trading with you anymore. So
yeah,
you could, but there's nothing that's stopping someone from going against that. So I'm just saying I would pretty much go against trading at this point.
Should we record the whole podcast, guys? Just kidding.
Like again.
Brian will not be able to swindle. Elon, this is against you because you're not going to be able to swindle me like Brian did last year, even though I still won.
Yeah. I had some really nice trades, but I don't think any of them would have backed out. I think my trade partners were smart. Anyways, okay, that's what it is. Thanks everyone again. This has been a crazy long episode. Also, I'd love to hear feedback on if you like this show overall, not just the final decision, but also the whole show. If you think it was fun, something we should do year in, year out. I had a blast. Thanks again, Dave, for being our tiebreaker. Good luck next year in the KKUPFL. Thanks again, John, for setting up the whole bracket and putting it all together. Thank you so much. You're the best. To the fine listeners out there, if you want to play in the KKUPFL, play through all these rules that we've discussed, you just have to become a patron, and then you'll have a link to go sign up. It's free for patrons, and you also get a bunch of other perks, right? Like access to our patron like Facebook group where we're giving advice, monthly patron casts, like a bunch of other stuff. So you can check out keepingkarlsson.com/patron for more information. And also, Brian, next thing we do with each other on a recording, we'll be starting our almanac. So this is pretty exciting. We're starting to record on Friday. So if you want to get in on the pre-order, now's your last chance to be able to watch some episodes live or get early access. So that's keepingkarlsson.com/almanac. We'd love your support. It's going to be a crazy 32 chapter odyssey that we'd love you to join us on.
We definitely at the start of the show should have said how you can join the KKUPFL.
I did, Brian. I did.
Okay, good. Yeah. Thanks everyone. Can't wait to speak to you on the almanac. You'll hear our sample chapter in a couple weeks in our free preview. That's exciting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's true. That's going to be the next. Oh, I should have said that. Obviously, the next regular episode will be chapter 1 of the Almanac. So, which I think is going to be Carolina. So it's going to be a lot of fun to discuss them. That's the first one we're going to record. So, goodbye, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Next thing you know, it's September, and we're getting really serious in keeping Karlsson. We're going to have weekly episodes breaking down all the preseason, giving as much advice as we can. So I hope you stick with us. And but with that, let's cue the outro music. I guess we don't have any credits. So why doesn't everyone just say goodbye?
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Deuces.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Cool. Keep on keeping Karlsson, Just do that.
All right. Wow. What an odyssey. Thanks so much.
Did you guys know that Jesse's kind of doing the same thing for Fantrax?
What's he doing?
Like an almanac kind of thing.
Oh, I did not know that. That's cool.
Like he
Here,
like,
actually, 1 sec. Let's because this is still the live video. So let's say goodbye now to the people watching live. Thank you so much.
Elon, should
Yeah.
we in the show notes? Oh, okay. It doesn't matter. I was gonna say, should we link people to the spoiler, final bracket
Sure.
at the end of the show?
Oh, well, that's okay. You could link it in the show notes.
Yeah, but I don't want people to click it without
So you say if you want to, blah blah blah.
Okay, if you want to spoil the whole show, which
Yeah.
we strongly recommend against.
I mean,
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So I'm gonna end the broadcast. Thanks everyone for watching. Bye. Okay. So that is